Venus retrograde is not just about your exes coming back. It's about your comeback. The love that you've poured out into this world that you feel was unused, underappreciated, undervalued, coming back to self. The money that you've spent and circulated out into this world, coming back to self. And most importantly, the gift of all this Venus retrograde, you coming back to self. Hi all, my name is Haley Comet and welcome to my cosmic corner of the internet where we discuss all things astrology, and today all things Venus retrograde March and April 2025 and you. What this transit has in store for your love life, for your finances, for your beauty, for your self-esteem, as Venus retrograde impacts all of these life arenas plus so much more. Which of course we will be exploring deeply from both a collective standpoint, the general guidance, the do's and don'ts for you to be mindful of, as well as from an individual rising sign by rising sign perspective, where Venus retrograde will transit within your chart and thus which life arenas will be the focus of your Venus retrograde journey. Because truly, it's a journey. When we talk about Venus retrograde, a lot of times we get very absorbed within the idea of exes coming back, ex-friends coming back, or even thinking about financial hiccups that can occur, beauty mistakes that can occur, which absolutely, when it comes to Venusian matters, love, beauty, money, they can get a little wonky. There can be some hiccups here and there. But when we focus in on that, we dilute the potency of Venus retrograde as a transit. It's not about your exes. It's not about the bangs that you impulsively cut at 2 a.m. It's not about the impulse shopping. It's about you. Because retrogrades are a flip of direction. So rather than being more active, it's more passive. Rather than being more concerned of the future, it's concerned with the past. Rather than being more focused on the external world, it's a time to dive into the internal world. It flips the perspective, it flips the focus. So when we go into this period just dialed into the people that we run into or dream of or are thinking about, we dilute how powerful this can be to really build a very loving, harmonious relationship with yourself. Thinking back to your past, not to get stuck there, but in order to clear out and close out any ongoing cycles, to really take the wisdom from your past experiences that you will take onward on your journey, to really reflect around your relationship that you have with money, your relationship that you have with your own aesthetic. Venus retrograde is not about your exes, your bangs, your impulse buys. Venus retrograde is about you. You are the most important relationship that you will have in your life. You are the true love of your life. You'll have many friendships within this lifetime, partnerships, your life partner, lovers. You will have individuals within your life, but the common denominator of all of the connections that you will have in this experience is you. And the relationship that you have with yourself, how it is that you value yourself and love yourself, and the worth that you see within yourself, that will impact every external relationship, every outer theme, every dynamic. That'll also impact your finances. That'll also impact your own beauty, or at least your ability to perceive your own beauty. So Venus retrograde is a time to get right with you, get right with your soul. And with Venus retrograde then tipping into Pisces, get right with the divine, get right with the Dharma that you were called to live out, to actualize, the calling that the universe has for you. So as you step into Venus retrograde, March and April 2025, it's not the time to get diverted from the potency of this transit by getting absorbed in the drama and chaos of who's coming back and who's trying to reconcile and who I'm dreaming of and journaling about. It's around really reflecting, who was I within these past relationships? Do I miss parts of who I was within these relationships? What are the gems that I can take with me from these past dynamics that I can pull with me on my journey onward? And how can I reflect on the authentic version of myself that I am, that the divine crafted me to be, in order to realign with my most authentic pathway forward? So Venus, the planet of love, beauty, money, pleasure, will be retrograde from March 1st until April 12th, 2025. This is considered red light territory as it relates to new Venusian matters. So I would stop before you buy something impulsively, especially if it's a large purchase. I would think again if you are thinking about making a major beauty decision, cutting your hair a wild way, dyeing your hair, something that you've never tried before. I would pause before jumping into a brand new relationship. And it's funny because this particular Venus retrograde, I think we're going to see a lot more people wanting to impulsively start and initiate all of these things. All of the financial decisions and beauty decisions and love decisions, because Venus starts its retrograde journey in the sign Aries, which as the first sign of the zodiac is about initiation. It's around assertion. And so with Venus retrograde in Aries, even my suggesting not to do those things, right? Not to cut your bangs impulsively at 2 a.m., not to jump back into a relationship with your ex without thinking it through, not to buy into some new scheme to make money. You might feel a little rebelliousness kick up within you around, okay, well now that Haley Comet said, I can't do that. Now it makes me want to do it even more so. Like Aries as a sign is the first of the zodiac for a reason. To be the first at something, you have to tell yourself yes, even when other people tell you no. If you go based on what people say is impossible, you will never trailblaze. You will never initiate something new. And so with Venus retrograde in Aries, it is your life. It's your hair. It'll grow back. If you jump back with your ex, so long as you don't get married, it's relatively easy to reverse that decision beyond the time wasted. If you do jump into a financial decision, money can be earned back, right? It can be remade again. Like, it's not to say that your world's going to end if you make these particular decisions. But the reason why astrologers say it's red light territory around that is because retrograde emphasizes the prefix re. So a lot of times decisions made, in this case in March and April, around love, beauty, money, will have to be redone. So you dye your hair red and you have to get it redone. You buy something significant and you have to return it. You jump back into a relationship with your ex and you have to revise what this relationship is going to be. It tends to be a time in which the matters that are undergoing may have to be revisited at a later time and date. So those impulsive decisions that you jump into, you may find you have to review in some way down the line. And even though that is the strict red light territory, there is a yellow light, and that is from late January to mid-May. That is Venus retrograde's shadow period. So from late January to early March, that's a time in which the themes of Venus retrograde are being introduced. And then from April 12th to mid-May, that's a time in which the themes of Venus retrograde are reviewed or redone. Again, depending on the unique story that you have with Venus retrograde. It's a yellow light because it's not that you are fully stopped, right? Venus retrograde is stopped. We are not actively driving forward. We are passively paused. We don't have to be so concerned on the road ahead of us, our future. We have a moment to look at the rear view mirror, to look behind us or to contemplate the past, what have you. Yellow light is a time for caution. It's a time to be mindful. It's a time to proceed slowly when it comes to matters of the heart, matters of the wallet, matters of the appearance, so on and so forth. So not the time to jump into anything brand new, even though you're likely going to feel tempted to, with Venus starting its retrograde journey in Aries. So Venus will be retrograde in Aries from March 1st to March 27th. What you need to know is that Venus does not thrive in this territory naturally. Venus is in its detriment in Aries. And the reason for this is because the themes are very incompatible. Aries, as the first sign of the zodiac, is around let's do the impossible, let's trailblaze, let's find a way when we're told that there's not a way, let's go after what it is that we want. It tends to be very impatient energy. If I want something, I go after it. Whereas Venus is around attracting, magnetizing towards us. Also, Aries is the sign of self. Venus is around love and connection. And so the themes itself are a bit mismatched. And what you could find during the first portion of Venus retrograde is there is a contemplation around the you in the you and I. Because again, any relationship is a balance of you and the person that you are in a relationship with. And if you are unhappy, if you are not getting your needs met, the relationship itself falters. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, it could be a time of you really questioning, do I feel valued here? Do I feel appreciated here? Do I feel wanted and desired here? Do I feel like I can advocate for myself or fight for what it is that I want within my relationships? Do I feel that my relationship is an authentic representation of the person that I am? Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is very true to itself. It does not fake the funk. So a lot of individuals could find that this is a time in which in your friendships, in your relationships, in your partnerships, you're less apt to fake the funk, to just plaster a sweet smile on your face and say it's okay when it's not, to act like you're cool with someone when you're not. Like, you could find that you're less inclined to just participate in social norms just because it is what's expected. Like with Venus retrograde in Aries, you might find like the charade of pretending to be someone that you're not gets harder and harder to sustain. And like, why should you be friends with people where you have to pretend to be someone else? Or why should you be in a partnership where you feel like you have to fit into a mold of what that person expects you to be as a partner? Like Venus retrograde in Aries could ask you, do I feel like this is a relationship for me? You know, Aries as a sign, it is independent, it is self-sufficient. So some of you could even be contemplating, do I want to be alone? Do I want to do my own thing? And my encouragement for that is definitely allow that seed to be planted at this time, but don't feel like you have to impulsively decide during Venus retrograde. Like I said, a lot of decisions made during Venus retrograde, whether we jump into a relationship, decide to exit a relationship, are reviewed at a later point in time. So it wouldn't be my encouragement if this is a lasting change that you want to have. It could be a really aligned time to contemplate that. But overall, with a Venus retrograde in Aries, it's a time to really contemplate the relationship that you have with yourself and how that could potentially be impacting your partnership, your marriage, what have you. Because it's not that everybody needs to exit out of their relationship or be on their own. But with Venus retrograde in Aries, it asks, do I feel like my needs are worthy enough for me to disrupt the peace temporarily in order to advocate for them? Do I feel comfortable being my authentic self around this person? Like I said earlier, any relationship is a balance of self and other. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, it also asks the relationship that you have with yourself. This too can also impact the partnership, the marriage that you have, where if you are expecting this person to meet all of your needs and you are unhappy, Venus retrograde in Aries could be like, how can I make myself happy? How can I cultivate more joy within my day-to-day or doing the things that light me up so I don't feel so dissatisfied expecting my partner to meet all of my needs? Which again, I think you should have a relationship that sees you, values you, appreciates you. But for some individuals, you could be asking yourself, am I expecting this outer world, my friendships, my relationships, my partnerships, to meet needs that only I can meet for myself? Your relationship with you is the most important one that you will have in this lifetime. If you are not right with you, the relationships in the outer world will falter because you will expect people to validate you in ways that only you can validate yourself. You will expect other people to meet certain needs that only you can meet for yourself. And again, the people within your life should see you, honor you, meet your needs, but no one can do everything for you. Not even your life partner. They cannot meet 100% of your needs all of the time. Some are for you. And again, if you are dissatisfied and making other people the issue around, if only my spouse was more exciting, then I would have more fun. If only my friend was available more. Like with Venus retrograde in Aries, it's like, where can I conjure that excitement for myself? Or where can I be more available for myself? Or rather than waiting on my friends to go skating with me, where can I do that myself? Rather than waiting on my partner to buy me flowers, where can I buy myself flowers? It's not to say you can't skate with your friends or have a spouse who buys you flowers, but it's like if you are waiting on these external people to give you what it is that you want, the energy of Aries is around, I deserve to have what it is that I want, so I'm going to go get it. I'm going to buy my own flowers. I'm going to take myself skating. And a lot of times you doing those things for yourself, not waiting on this outside world and other people within your life to do those things for you, does improve your relationships because you're able to just appreciate the person for who it is that they are and not see them through the lens of all of the ways that you feel deprived and neglected. And you don't need to outsource your desires that only other people can bring them to you. See how it feels to buy yourself flowers, to take yourself on the date that you want someone else to take you on, to show yourself that love and appreciation that you may have felt could only come from the outside world. You know, Aries is a very impatient energy. So some of you could get a little impatient during this time around, if you're not going to take me to dinner, whatever, I'll take myself to dinner because I enjoy my own company. Like, that's the energy that I want you to embody this Venus retrograde, is like falling in love with yourself, treating yourself right, conjuring and creating that excitement that you crave from others, those experiences that you crave from others, that validation that you crave from others, seeing where you can give that to yourself. And it all starts with you. I know we hear that all the time, but are you hearing this? It starts with you. It's like going into a grocery store when you are so hungry, right? You're just gonna grab whatever you see first because you're going in feeling famished, feeling deprived. When we are not pouring into ourselves, treating ourselves right, taking ourselves on the dates that we want to go on, buying ourselves the flowers that we desire, when someone gives us a sliver of attention or validation, we will accept it, right? Because we're deprived. We want that love. We don't feel like we have it within our world. So we're like, okay, Cheetos, sure. First thing I saw when I walked into the store. We don't make good decisions when we ourselves are famished. And again, sometimes we get hangry, right? We get mad. We make other people the enemy, but it's like, we didn't eat, right? We didn't nourish ourselves. Versus if you are doing the things that align you with genuine self-respect and self-love, which is beyond just taking yourself to dinner and flowers, but that's just essentially a component of it. If you walk into a grocery store and you did take that opportunity to feed yourself and nourish yourself, you're going to be less hangry. And you're also going to be able to plan and design a nice meal that will genuinely nourish you. You make better decisions when you yourself are fed. And in this case, when you yourself are loved by you. Like Alexa, play Flowers by Miley Cyrus. Like, you can love you better than anyone else can. Again, you'll have lots of fulfilling relationships and friendships within this lifetime. There are pockets of your soul that only you can pour into, that only you will fulfill. Only you can decide to nourish yourself in that way, and that will support you in making the romantic decisions that are best for you, the financial decisions that are best for you. You do not want to be reliant on outer validation, on outer sources. Again, as human beings, we need connection to survive. We are here to connect. But we cannot make the onus of our own confidence, of our own courage, of our own sense of self be around other people, to be utterly hinged on external validation, because we will be perpetually hungry for it until we learn how to sustain it for ourselves, or to give it to ourselves, or to feed it to ourselves, so on and so forth. So if you're having an issue within your relationship, see where you can genuinely pour into you around, am I trying to make this person the solution to issues that they did not cause, are not responsible for, and don't even have the capacity to fill into? From March 27th to April 12th, Venus then enters territory where it is very happy. This is exaltation. So yes, there's still this call to look inward, to find that love from within, to find that value and that worthiness from within. But at least with Venus in Pisces, there's a little bit more of a natural fit. We're more inclined to see the beauty and the divinity within ourselves around, oh, there was nothing wrong with me. Like the times that I was told that I was too much or too this or too that, it's simply because of my calling or who the divine designed me to be. Pisces is a very spiritual sign, and this helps with self-love. To be able to rework any place and space where we were told we're too much, we're too this, we're too that, to see that we're exactly as the divine designed us to be. Pisces is a very spiritual sign. So if you are fighting with yourself in the first part of Venus retrograde, fighting with your authenticity around why am I this way? It would be so much easier if I was more this or more that. With Venus retrograde in Pisces, it's around I'm exactly who the divine designed me to be. And how can I complain about components of who it is that I am while still being appreciative of the parts of my journey that have unfolded already? So many times they're part and parcel to one another. Like you can't have the flaws and also keep the gifts of what it is that you've been given. For example, I've always detested how sensitive I am. I feel like it's a whole part-time job in and of itself, just keeping up with how deeply I feel everything for everybody. It's exhausting. And I can't possibly complain about it any longer because I recognize just all of the gifts that flaw within my design has given me. Like I could not possibly have the calling that I do, have this purpose, have this mission that I do while not having that flaw of my own sensitivity. Like how deeply I feel for everyone is why I am able to do what it is that I do. And so there might be elements of yourself where you're even battling against your own design, battling against the gifts that the universe gave you, that you might still be figuring out around, gosh, Haley, Comet, why did the divine have to make me so scattered or so this or so that? But again, with Venus retrograde in Pisces, it's like true, genuine self-love is loving all that you are unconditionally, honoring and understanding there's always parts of ourselves that we can work on and improve and get better at, but really acknowledging that we are a masterpiece crafted by the universe, beautiful in all of its flaws and intricacies. Each paint stroke and color adding nuance to the overall masterpiece of our soul, of our calling, of our mission. So I do feel like that softens the Venus retrograde journey from that point onward. What I do want to say, so around love particularly, with Venus retrograde in Aries, there is a focus around fighting for love, earning love, winning love. Be very mindful around making people prizes when they are nothing of the sort. Because Aries is around, gotta win. It's around the chase, really. And some people could find during Venus retrograde, whether it's present connections, past connections, are tempted to fight for someone, fight for this prize, earn this person's love and validation and affection. Just to realize once you win, once you get that person's heart and affection and validation, recognizing, oh, this actually isn't what I wanted at all. I just wanted what I allowed this to mean about me. I felt like if I won you back, if I got you to like me, if I got you to approve of me, then I am worthy, I am lovable. Like a lot of times we can fight for and claw for someone to show up in a particular way. Not everybody has the capacity to do so. It's not everybody's role within their spiritual calling, right? With Venus retrograde in Pisces. Like we could desire someone to be some sort of partner, but they might not have the capacity to do that, nor is that in alignment with their path. Like at the end of the day, people truly are who they are. That's why a lot of times when we're begging for someone to show up in the right way, act in the right way, we can feel so frustrated because sometimes they'll change for a little bit and then go right back to their baseline because they've got to want it. They've got to want to change or to show up differently. And sometimes people are who they are. And then it's your responsibility to decide, do I want to maintain this relationship? Is this really how I want to be loved? Or do I want to go our separate ways? And Venus retrograde in Pisces is really around seeing the divinity in someone. It's interesting because Venus retrograde in Aries is very much like, where's the me in this connection? And then Venus retrograde in Pisces is around really taking a step back to the universal big picture themes, right, of spirit and soul. The soulful path that you are on, the soulful path that your partners, your friends, your lovers are on. And witnessing if they converge or if they diverge. Because no amount of love can make puzzle pieces fit where they don't fit. Like if your spiritual soulful paths take the two of you in different directions, it can feel romantic to fight for and to claw for those paths to come together, right? With Venus retrograde in Aries around, I don't care if it's not meant to be. You're what I want. You're what I desire. But Venus retrograde in Pisces is almost taking this more spiritual, soulful perspective to it around just witnessing the path that you are on and potentially the path that other people are on. And maybe there's elements of sensitivity and sadness imbued within it, but just acknowledging it is what it is. Our paths are just taking you in different directions. And true love is not about conditions that we place around, I love you only if you show up like this, or I love you only if you change for me, what have you. Not saying that you need to withstand it. Again, you have the agency and autonomy to remove yourself from it if it does not align for you. But with Venus retrograde, if you've been clawing and begging and pleading for someone to show up and act right, at the end of the day, people are who they are. And with Venus retrograde in Pisces, it's almost just like acknowledging that they are on their own journey. And we cannot force someone's soulful spiritual path to be different than what it is. That's why they say when you love someone, set them free. Because if they're really meant to be for you, it's around both of you being authentic and true to yourselves and to your path and being able to converge those paths. But if you feel like one or both of you are having to sacrifice huge elements of your path in order to withstand the connection itself, there can be an opportunity with Venus retrograde in Pisces to kind of take that step back around, are you keeping me from my dharma, my mission, my calling? Am I keeping you from yours? Am I trying to force you to be someone that you are not, or forcing your path to be something that it just isn't? And again, this is us not putting expectations or conditions on the people that we love. Again, sometimes you could just remove yourself around, I'm going to love you from afar because the way that you're loving me or showing up, it doesn't align for me. It's not true to my own value and worthiness. So I love you so much, but I got to set you free because I can't withstand this within my life, but I'm not telling you how to be or telling you how to live. And that's such a hard decision to let someone go. And again, this could be contemplating a breakup. I would wait till after the Venus retrograde to make any major decisions. Some individuals could make that decision to remove themselves from certain dynamics, whether it's a current connection, friendship, partnership, or even just letting the hope of a past connection die out or release around, if it was meant to be, it would have been. Like the energy of Pisces, it could be heartbreaking when things are not meant to be, that our paths were not meant to walk together for the rest of our lives. That could be heartbreaking. It could be depressing, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like the energy of Pisces is just acknowledging there's so many bigger cycles and reasons why we came here and lessons that our soul was here to learn. We can be mad at destiny, right? We could be mad at the divine and God around, why did you take this person away from me? Or why couldn't it work out? I don't understand. But Venus exalts in Pisces. Venus is the planet of love. Pisces around spirituality and the divine. Love is something divine. Universal, selfless, compassionate love is something that is divine. But Venus's dignity here implies that any sort of relationship is bigger than just the you and the me. It's around destiny. And I can love you and love the soul that you are while still acknowledging that it's bigger than just us. It's our souls. It's the lessons that we were here to learn. It's the path that we were destined to walk. And sometimes we have certain people that we link up with at a certain season of our life, and those paths are meant to diverge at some point. And we can claw, we could beg, we could plead. You know, with Venus retrograde in Aries, we could fight for this love or fight to make these puzzle pieces fit. But Venus retrograde in Pisces is just essentially acknowledging it was what it was. And I love the soul that you are, but I need to do that from afar because it's just so clear to me that our paths are taking us in different directions. And I feel for some, there's this nudge around recognizing that true love that's really meant for you, will not require you to lose yourself in order to keep it. And this gets tricky with Venus in Pisces. Again, it's an exalted placement, but it can represent some self-sacrificial behavior. I can tell you one thing right now, your purpose is bigger than fixing someone else or saving someone else or waiting for someone else or holding out hope for someone else or keeping yourself small in order to fit yourself into a mold of the sort of partner that this person can have within this world. I guarantee you have a mission and calling that's bigger than that. You did not come to this planet to worship at the altar of this person, because that's where Venus in Pisces gets tricky. Is a lot of times we can make our lovers our God or our idol in some way, funneling our unbridled devotion towards this person without boundaries, without limits. That's the very nature of Pisces. And it's tricky because Venus aligns with Neptune during its retrograde journey and then Saturn. And Neptune is around the soulful, spiritual parts of love, around losing ourselves within the partnership, where Saturn is acknowledging within this physical, material world, our love must have limits. Like our devotion must have boundaries, because no person is truly worthy, no matter how amazing and incredible they are. No one person on this planet is worthy enough to make them our God, right? Or our central purpose, our central mission. Humans are humans. We cannot pour in unlimited devotion towards someone, losing ourselves entirely within them. Again, we can love someone unconditionally, but with Venus retrograde, you also have to love yourself unconditionally. To love someone means to want the best for them, want them to live out their dharma, their mission, their calling, even if that does not involve you, and to love yourself enough to love your mission, your calling, your dharma, even if that means not with this person. The wrong relationship or connection can distract you from your path. It can take you away from the mission and the calling that universe, source, God, whatever you want to call it, has chosen for you. And a lot of times it can feel selfish to choose ourselves, but it's really not, because it's beyond even just choosing yourself. It's around choosing your path, choosing your relationship with God, choosing your relationship to the divine, devoting yourself to something so much bigger than yourself that's worthy of it. Because again, one person is not worthy of all of your devotion, all of your life force energy, pouring it into a mission or calling, something that can fulfill your dharma or actualize and apply all of the talents and gifts and abilities that you have, something that can genuinely make a difference and help other humans. And you know, you may not know me. This might be your first time stopping by my cosmic corner of the internet, which if so, hi, welcome. My name is Haley Comet. Some of you may have watched some of my videos or familiar with me or my content, but I just want to share something personal that kind of brings this point to life. I was entangled with someone where I lost my sense of self within this person altogether. And when I lost my sense of self, I lost my intuition, I lost my connection to God, I lost my connection to the universe, I lost, honestly, my connection to my calling, to my purpose, to my mission. The time that I was ensnared in this person was the time that I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit my business, I wanted to delete my YouTube channel, I wanted to sabotage everything that I had worked for up to this point. For a person, for one person who is not all that, okay? All love, wish that person well on their journey, but no person is worth sacrificing what it is that you feel called to do. Had I instead decided that my calling was around this person and their drama and their chaos and fixing them and saving them, what have you, this body of work would simply cease to exist, would not be here. And that's something that I love. That's where I feel the most alive. That's where I feel the most free. That's where I feel the most connected to God and universe and source energy. So regardless if this is your first time here, if you watch my videos before, keep that in mind. If you reach a fork in the road around recognizing that the more that you entangle with someone, the less interested you are around your calling, your path, what it is that you feel guided to do, that's not a great sign. This body of work, my passion as I deliver it, would cease to exist had I reached that fork in the road and chose this person. I had to run like crazy back to myself because I lost myself so completely within that again, I almost walked away from my passion, my calling, what I am the most proud of within this world. And I'm so genuinely thankful that I ran like hell back to my purpose and my connection with God and really back to myself. And maybe that could be seen as selfish that I chose myself, but if you've gained any bit of value from my videos, it wasn't just about choosing myself. It was around choosing my calling, which helps many people, and yours will as well, whatever it may be. I guarantee it's not wrapped up into one person. And if the cost of entry to a connection with this person is you sacrificing elements of yourself, suppressing elements of yourself, losing elements of yourself, denying elements of yourself, that is a cost that is too steep, especially if it's something that you were designed for, crafted as. And if you watch my weekly horoscope series, Magic Monday, I kind of shared about this experience there, so you may already be familiar with this. But in the time that I kept walking down that path with that person, my intuition got more and more quiet. I had all the warning signs like, Haley, get out of this. I ignored them, kept walking down the path. And then my intuition got quieter and quieter and quieter. And my overall sense of self got murkier and murkier and murkier. If you are on a trajectory where you're connected with someone and you are losing yourself more and more, do you think the further you get on that path, you're going to magically suddenly return back to yourself? The trajectory is what the trajectory is. Patterns are what they are. If things feel to be going in a certain direction, that denotes that it's getting more and more that way. And so I feel for some with Venus retrograde in Pisces, it also could be this invitation to review what your intuition has been telling you about certain connections, about certain friendships, and really observing, do I like myself when I'm around this person? Do I feel at ease when I'm around this person? What does my intuition tell me about this person? That might be something to contemplate. On the exes, let's just talk about it. Let's go there. Here's the thing. Can this be an aligned time to reconcile with someone from your past? Yes, but with some really important caveats. Firstly, ask yourself what you are fighting for. Aries, where Venus starts its retrograde journey, is a very competitive energy, and we could be more inclined to want to fight for love, wanting to win approval by winning our ex back or winning this person over. Really question if you actually want the prize at the end of that battle. Because sometimes we don't actually want our ex back. We don't actually want this person's affection. We just wanted to prove that we could. And furthermore, we've arbitrarily assigned, if I can win this person back, that means that I'm lovable. If I can get this person to choose me rather than their current partner, that means that I'm more desirable. We assign and apply this person, this chase, to mean something bigger than what it actually is. This is just a person. Like I said, with Venus retrograde, only you can make yourself feel truly desirable and valuable and enough. That high, that adrenaline rush of winning this person back, winning this person's affection, stealing this person from their partner, that will fade. The adrenaline rush fades. And then you're left with the person, which a lot of times you may look at and be like, oh, I didn't actually want a relationship with this person. I just wanted to prove that I could. And I thought winning you over would make me finally feel loved and chosen and worthy. And maybe it does for a millisecond, but then that hunger returns back again. Like I said, with Venus retrograde in Aries, you got to feed yourself. You got to nourish yourself. Because other people and their validation and their attention, it's really just going to hit like empty calories in a certain essence around it. It might nourish you for a moment, but it's not really giving you what it is that you need. And really be cautious what you've built people up to represent within your life. If I can get my ex back, that means that I'm good enough. That means that I'm valuable. That means that I'm worthy. That is just a person. Especially when Venus returns back into Pisces, aligns with Neptune. Be very mindful where you are projecting someone to be something that they are not. This person is not your ticket to finally feeling chosen and good enough and worthy enough. They are just a person. And maybe there's certain needs that you feel like this person would fulfill. And then once you get this person back, you find, wait, why do I still feel insecure? Why do I still not feel good enough? You were supposed to fix that for me. No one person can fix that for you. And also be very mindful around where it is that you are projecting someone to be something that they are not. Even outside of what you've assigned that person to represent in relation to yourself and your value and your beauty, what have you. Also being cautious around qualities that you're projecting onto this person, around your crush being a certain way or your ex being a certain way. With Venus aligning with Neptune, a lot of times we can idealize and romanticize people and situations to be something that they are fundamentally not. You know, they say a crush is a lack of information. And again, there's lots to love about people and the divinity within them, but truly, when we only have a little bit of information on someone, whether it's a gym crush or maybe an ex that we've, lost touch with, we're able to dress up that little bit of information that we know, as well as add in all of this fluff of what we've made up. Like Neptune is very much imagination, fantasy energy. So we could build someone up to have all of these qualities that they themselves do not actually possess within reality. And this can get so sinister and nefarious because if you are going into Venus retrograde hoping that someone comes back, hoping that an ex from the past comes back, with the Venus Neptune, really be mindful of the worlds that you're building around this person, particularly if you feel like your life will finally start once this person comes back. If you've fantasized this person's going to come back and we're going to live this life, again, fantasy keeps you safe, but it keeps you stuck. It keeps you safe because when you're in fantasy, you don't have to take a risk. You don't have to put yourself out there for new experiences and new people that you can meet. But it keeps you stuck because you can be in this holding period, this waiting period around as soon as this person comes back, then I can move on with my life. Then my life will begin. With Venus retrograde, the care and keeping of you is an inside job, right? It's not about outsourcing that somebody else is going to love you into loving yourself, right? Or when this person comes in, then suddenly your life has worthiness and meaning. That starts with you. Soulmates are people where you are following your own soulful calling and path. They're following theirs, and the paths converge because it's divine, because it's destined, because it's fated. No soulmate will be somebody that you have to wait for or change for. And so a lot of times when we're waiting, as soon as this person comes back, or we're holding ourselves back from meeting new people or opening ourselves up to new experiences, waiting for this person to come back, we're keeping ourselves stuck. And we're building up this whole world that doesn't exist. We're projecting this person to be something that they are not. And it's a very unfulfilling way to live, is living in fantasy, is living in even limerence, maybe in some people's cases. So really question if holding out hope for an ex or someone from the past is keeping you stuck, is holding you back. Maybe you're dressing up the distance or fantasizing that it means something that it does not. With Venus aligning with Saturn, there's an invitation to really get real about it. And again, the beautiful thing is, if it's meant to be, it will come into your life. Live your life, move forward. Do not keep yourself stagnant, hoping that this person will come back and fill up that person-sized void that they left in your life. You need to live for you. And I know it's hard. Matters of the heart always are. And I think if you are genuinely trying to heal from someone, detach from someone, I do feel this Venus retrograde can be very helpful. Really go into this period with the intention around really closing that chapter. Venus retrograde is a time around completing the incomplete, particularly when it comes to matters of the heart. And sometimes we have a story that feels unfinished, right? It's like, I can't believe that it's really over. I can't believe it's really the end. And oftentimes we can think this final conversation will bring me the closure that I need. But with Venus retrograde, it can be this invitation for you to just genuinely find the closure that you need from yourself. You know, the closure was the disrespect. The closure was that it didn't work out. If it was meant to, it would have worked out. The closure was the way that you felt. The closure was how your intuition was screaming at you to get away. Like, a lot of life is mysterious and nebulous. You know, Venus retrograde in Pisces, North Node's also in Pisces. There's bigger cycles, there's bigger stories, and we don't always get that conclusion that we're looking for at this particular moment in time. I think closure is an inside job, right? With Venus retrograde, a lot of things that we look for outside of us can only be found from within. We could just feel like one more conversation and then I'll feel like I can walk away, or one more time that they try to slide back in and then I'll feel validated, or one more psychic reading, tapping into their energy, and then I'll feel like I can walk away. Sometimes those things can be addictive and they can keep us in the loop. And if the intention is to genuinely detach from it and let it go, if you're getting bored of it, with Venus retrograde, it's around really, where can I just find closure for myself, and even find closure in the mystery of it all, right? With Venus retrograde in Pisces, there's bigger cycles. There's things that we will not know in this lifetime. And so it's seeing wherever possible on your side of the street, you could just arrive to a place around, it is what it is. It was what it was. If it was meant to be, it would have. And my encouragement, if you're going into this period, or you do go through a breakup during this period, be in it. Be in the hurt. Be in the pain. Be in the messiness of the pain itself. Be in the sensitivity and the tenderness of the pain itself. That's how we get through it. And I know it's so uncomfortable and it can make you feel stuck and you feel like you're never going to get to the other side. But genuinely, the more that you could just be in it, be in the hurt, be in the pain, allow yourself to go through all of the motions, all of the healing, the sooner you will come out of it. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, write burn letters. Everything that you want to text this person during this period, write it into a letter, burn it on fire. Listen to energetic frequencies around heartache when you are sleeping. Like, make your healing a priority. Like, dive headfirst into healing this Venus retrograde, because you can find during this period you genuinely tie up loose ends in the past, and you find that after Venus clears, it's post-retrograde shadow mid-May, you feel like you're genuinely open to new connections. That's the best way to attract new love and to be magnetic, is an open heart chakra, truly. Like, being open and fully done with the past. Like, when you have weird, lingering situations, people are like halfway in, halfway out within your life, to an energetic level, you are closed out to like new, healthy, fulfilling love, because you still have this energetic baggage that you're holding on to. So if you're going into this period feeling like that is the case, Venus retrograde is around, how can I shed and release and close this chapter? How can I say everything I want to say in these burn letters? How can I cry all of the tears necessary? How can I really prioritize my healing to such a degree that I genuinely get to the other side of this heartache and I'm genuinely open to new experiences? And even if your breakups were a while ago, you know, Venus retrograde could be you looking back at your romantic past and seeing the cycles that you've been in. And with Venus retrograde, genuinely learning from them. Like, read your own journals, reflect on the past, think about the who that you were within relationships and the cycles that you are putting an end to around no more of this particular dynamic within relationships. No more making you my God, no more making excuses for you, no more fighting for something that is not healthy or good for me. Like with Venus retrograde, it could be you really making peace with the past. Again, not that everything should have happened to you, but just around it happened. What can I learn from it in order to move forward, in order to close out certain cycles that I've been ensnared in? And yes, some of you could hear from someone from your past. And before you run into their arms and skip together into the sunset, like I said at the very beginning, Venus retrograde is about you. It is not about your exes. It is not about your ex-friends. It's not around your ex-colleagues, all of which could come back around with Venus retrograde. It's not about them. It's about you. So if you dream of someone from your past, run into someone from your past, hear from someone from your past, reflect. Who was I within this connection? Who was I within this relationship? What did I learn from this person about myself, about my value, about my worthiness? And are there any loose ends as it relates to this dynamic that we can tie up? Is there any way that I can complete the incomplete as it relates to this dynamic? If this is not somebody that I want to have in my journey onward, because it's up to you, I think, for people who are contemplating jumping back into something. Venus retrograde in Aries, like I said, could make us more impulsive, jumping in, getting hooked on the adrenaline, not always being conscious of the effects that jumping back in with this person can have on us. But also we're a little delusional. You know, with Venus on Neptune, we could feel like, oh, we're going to jump back into this and we're not going to have the same problems that we did prior. Things don't just poof disappear. And Neptune energy, we can future fake, we can say how it's going to be different this time, but eventually reality catches up. Venus aligns with Saturn, like reality catches up. It's nice to have the sweet nothings and the high around running back to this person, and this friendship's going to be so different this time, this relationship's going to be so different this time. Ask to see receipts. Take it slow would be my encouragement with Venus retrograde. Really ensure that you've healed the pain of the past and the cycles of the past before you move forward. And it's fascinating because the day that Venus stations direct, April 12th, we have the Libra full moon, which is a lunation that brings up relationships and partnerships. And this is the first Libra full moon that we've had in a couple of years that's not an eclipse. So it's kind of wrapping up a karmic cycle. At the time of this Venus retrograde, we also have eclipses. So if people from the past come back, it could be karma that we need to settle with that person, maybe from this lifetime, maybe even from lifetimes prior. There is something karmic and fated about what's happening at this time. And that doesn't mean karmic and fated that we need to take these people on with us in our journey. Sometimes the very act around someone coming back and us choosing ourselves, particularly if we've been in a pattern or loop around us jumping right back into it, sometimes that frees us from lifetimes of being ensnared in certain patterns or habits. Sometimes that very act of you choosing yourself frees you from a dynamic, a dance that you've been doing with this person from lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes ago. And again, eclipses are fated. Fated people coming in, fated people departing our world. So with Venus retrograde, it could be the people that are coming back, the dreams that we're having, the people that we're running into. It could just be those neural networks, in a sense, dying out. Those neural synapses, in a sense, dying out, right? Around completing the chapter, walking away. It is done. It's done. I've learned what I needed to learn from you. And it was not a waste of time. Like I think with Venus direct on the Libra full moon, it's around any connection that we were in supported us in learning about love, relationships, supported us in learning about ourselves. It's not a waste of time. We take that wisdom that we learned within these entanglements. We take the wisdom that we learned. We take the person that we became because of the connections that we've been involved with. We take that with us, and it allows the picture of our soulmate, our life partner, to become that much clearer. And as we know, Venus extends beyond just love, connections, and relationships. Venus is also our money. And so during Venus retrograde, it is my encouragement to not make any major financial purchases, particularly if they are based on impulse. See if you still want to buy that thing in a week's time. I always was taught when I was shopping to leave what I wanted there, continue my shopping, and if I'm still thinking about it, then return back. Because a lot of times when we're caught up in the heat of the moment of being at the boutique and finding something that we like, or finding something that we like on Amazon, wanting to purchase it right away, sometimes if we just hold off, we can gain clarity around if we really want that thing. So with Venus retrograde, giving yourself that gap point to see, do I really value this? Do I want to spend the money that I have on this particular item? I would encourage you to widen that gap time during Venus retrograde by holding off on making any major purchases. Just, you can add things to the cart, but then just see if you want that cart purchase in a week's time. You could see what you like at the boutique, but see if you are genuinely thinking about that shirt even a couple of hours later. Like sometimes when we put some distance and we don't allow ourselves to move on impulse and being in the heat of the moment and wanting to conquer, right? Seeing what we like and going after it is a very Aries concept with Venus starting its retrograde journey in Aries. Sometimes when we get that distance from it, we can allow the adrenaline to fade and to really gain clarity on it. Because even though Venus retrograde in Aries is the one that I'm referring to around being very impulsive, you know, Venus in Pisces has its faults as well. Even though it's exalted, Venus will align with Neptune throughout its retrograde journey in Pisces. And Neptune is buying into the dream. Neptune energy can be scam energy. That's another reason why I would hold off on major financial purchases. Neptune governs water, and it's important to let things settle. Sometimes when we're at the seminar or someone's selling us a dream, we get caught up in it, in this fantasy life around what this get-rich-quick scheme can give us or what this purchase is going to do for our lives. But again, when we let things settle, when we take a beat, when we reflect, sometimes we allow that clarity to come through, which would be an encouragement around your finances. Now, Venus retrograde can be a time that money from the past catches back up to us. If you are owed money, Venus retrograde could be a time in which that money finds you, either via the source that it was owed to you by, or maybe even from a different source. You could go into this time period affirming, universe, I call back all of my energy that went unused, underappreciated, undervalued back to me in the form of currency and compensation. Allow yourself to decree that and notice what shows up. Because sometimes, you know, that friend who we lent money to does pay us back, or that invoice that we sent to a client does get paid back. Like sometimes it shows up via the actual vehicle where we lent that money or did that service. But sometimes it's like that is a loss. Maybe we're not friends with that person any longer. Maybe that client went MIA after that project. But sometimes that energy that we expended comes back to us via a different source, via a different vehicle. And this could, of course, be money owed, but as well as like energy and time that you poured out into this universe. You know, I'm a believer in the divine law of compensation, that even if you feel like, dang, I lost money on this, or I lent this person money and they never got back to me, or that was a waste of time, it didn't even generate any sales, trust that that energy that you invested, that you poured out into the world, can absolutely find you via other sources, via other ways, via other vehicles of bringing it back to you. And yes, you can leave it open-ended around, I just call back energy and love and time that went unused back to myself. And it can show up around feeling more motivated and magnetic. Absolutely, that could be powerful. But I've learned to supplement the end around via compensation, because sometimes you can find random money is finding you. That's really a reward of past efforts that you've put out there, and now it's around calling it back to you. This can be a really helpful way to work with Venus retrograde. On the financial topic, I would also add that this can be a really helpful time to go through your finances, tie up any loose ends, maybe pay back anyone that you are indebted to, can be very helpful here. it's not really good energetically when things are messy or when there's loose ends, and that can show up within our romantic life, as we discussed, but also our financial life. It's hard to call in new projects and new initiatives when we still have messiness or open ends kind of behind us. And so this could be a time around perhaps paying back anyone that you owe money to, or just doing whatever possible on your end in order to simplify your finances, to really gain clarity, what's coming in, what's going out, as well as potentially even reflecting on your financial style. Maybe you're not someone who is an impulse shopper. Maybe you're someone who exists in fight or flight around finances and feels really guilty spending money on yourself. With Venus retrograde, this could be an opportunity to review where that fight or flight came from, likely from very valid reasons that's ingrained into you. But with Venus retrograde, it could be a time to really reflect. Because a lot of times our relationship with the money, both the earning and the spending, can impact and transcend many other arenas of our life. If you own your own business, if you work a job and you feel you're undervalued, you don't feel you're being compensated appropriately, this could be a really powerful time to really review, like maybe see what's appropriate for your role, what's appropriate for your business. Because if you do not see your value, other people are all too apt to take advantage of that. Like, again, it starts from within. It's like if you're a Picasso, but you are in the hands of someone who works at Goodwill, where this painting was just donated, and they don't have the eye or the art background in order to see the true value of the painting, they might say that it's worth $20. And it's up to you to know your worth, because some people will be all too happy to price you for $20 or buy, your beauty or your services, what have you, for $20. Like, it starts with you. And there might be a journey that you embark upon around either reviewing your pricing if you work at your own business, or even reviewing if this workplace has the capacity to see your value that you put in, and potentially even making shifts in order to up your financial earning power. Would not be my encouragement to take on a new job during Venus retrograde or to do anything risky financially, but it can be a time to really review it. Review what's happening within your industry, review the value that you add to your company, to your business, to your clients, what have you, and see where it is that you could potentially advocate or fight for pricing and a salary that is a genuine reflection of your worth. Because again, Venus and Aries, sometimes you have to be your own biggest advocate. Sometimes you do have to fight for yourself, or stand up for yourself, or stand up for your value or your worth. On a beauty note, Venus retrograde would not be the time that I would do any drastic measures as it relates to your beauty. I would reschedule, if possible, any cosmetic surgery. I would reschedule any dramatic hair shift. If there are tattoos for the purpose of aesthetics, I would potentially reschedule them. If it's a cover-up or it's a redo, that actually can be aligned. But if it's something that you really want to look beautiful, I would perhaps hold off. I would encourage you, if you do have beauty appointments, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, Haley, come on, I can't go that long without getting my nails done, stick to styles that you like. If you need to get your hair done, stick to cuts that you know you like, colors that you know look good on you, practitioners that you regularly go for. This is not the time to be risky, be bold, and try something brand new, because you may find you have to redo the surface or revise it in some way. A helpful way to leverage Venus retrograde would be releasing clothes that no longer feel like they authentically fit your style. This can be a great time to throw away expired makeup that's taking up space within your drawers. This is a great time to declutter. I would avoid shopping. I would avoid purchasing more, doing more. This is a time around simplifying what you already have and creating space, because sometimes when we go through our clothes, we find things where it's like, oh, this, and we get more excited to repurpose what we already have rather than going out and purchasing new things, right? So if your tendency, especially with Venus and Aries, is like, I have an event, I need to buy something new, maybe you could challenge yourself, Aries energy, all about a challenge, maybe you could challenge yourself to rework something that you already have. And this could be an aligned time to go back to a style that you know that you like. So for example, if in your early 20s, you were really into a more goth aesthetic. And just as time went on, you kind of lost touch with that side of yourself. Venus retrograde can be a brilliant time to reconnect with that side of yourself, to pull elements of that goth aesthetic or what have you into your current iteration of self. Venus retrograde could be a time of reconnecting with self. And yes, sometimes we do that with our aesthetic. Sometimes we do that in terms of how we like to spend our leisure time, right? Maybe you used to love to play an instrument. This is a brilliant time to reconnect to that. Maybe you used to love to paint. Maybe you used to love to challenge yourself in rock climbing, whatever you love to do. Like with Venus retrograde, it's really showing your self-love by prioritizing what it is that you love. And especially with Venus retrograde into Pisces, this speaks to the activities that you do, that you lose yourself within. You merge utterly within. When you play guitar, you lose track of time. When you are on the rock climbing wall, you lose track of time. It feels like an art form, how it is that you scale up the rocks. Like, this can be a way to show yourself love and appreciation and prioritizing these elements of your life. Really encoding, my life is meant to be fun. My life is meant to feel good. I don't need somebody else to go rock climbing with me. I don't need somebody else to play guitar with. Again, connection is a beautiful part of this experience. But if you feel like you're holding off around, yeah, maybe I'll take the paint class when I have a bae, or maybe I'll travel here when I have a partner, be impatient about what sets your soul on fire. Be impatient, be urgent about what it is that you desire and want within this experience. That is the encouragement with Venus retrograde in Aries. And Venus retrograde in Pisces is, rather than lose yourself in people or in drama from exes or ex-friends, lose yourself in activities that pour into you as much as you pour into them. So as we've just dove into, there are a lot of different implications of what could arise during Venus retrograde. Some people are going to have a major financial story. Some people are going to have all sorts of people from the past spin the block. Some people are going to reconcile with friends from the past. So to figure out the likely life arenas that will come up for you in March and April 2025, we'll want to look at where Venus will retrograde within your unique natal chart. So to proceed and find your reading, there are two options. The first, if you are newer to astrology or you utilize whole sign houses, what you'll do is you'll find your rising sign, also known as ascendant sign, and you'll go to the timestamps within my description and jump ahead to the timestamp that corresponds to your rising sign, your ascendant. That will be your reading, that will be your message, that will be your Venus retrograde story. If you utilize Placidus house system, I do as well. It is a little bit trickier, but this way we can get specific on where exactly Venus will retrograde within your chart, because it could just be one house. It could be the houses that are listed by your rising sign. It could be one of the houses that's listed under another rising sign. This is the way to get specific around where exactly Venus will move retrograde within based on Placidus house system. So I'll show you a tutorial step by step on screen. So what you'll do is you'll go to astro.com and you'll get a circle chart that looks like this. Beautiful. So within your chart, you'll want to find the Pisces glyph. It's like a blue H, and the Aries glyph. It's red and it looks like this. Amazing. They will be right next to each other. Now, Venus retrograde starts at 10 degrees Aries. So you'll want to find the second little grid mark of Aries, because each of these marks indicates increments of 5. So it goes 5, 10. So within the example on screen of inner planet Janet, we see that 10 degrees Aries lands in her 5th house. So we'll just make a mental note. Okay, definitely listen to 5th house. And then we'll go to where Aries begins and Pisces ends, this line right here. And you're going to go back one grid mark. This is 25 degrees Pisces. And so we'll want to go just a little bit before that 25 degrees Pisces. So a little bit away from that Aries icon. So right about here. And we see within inner planet Janet, that is in her 4th house. So inner planet Janet would listen to Venus retrograde in the 5th house, Venus retrograde in the 4th house. And my encouragement would be to listen to any reading that lists Venus retrograde in the house that it's retrograde in within your birth chart. As I'll refer to some houses, Venus retrograde in Aries, Venus retrograde in Pisces. That may be the same as your rising. It may require you to listen to a different reading than what's listed under your rising sign. You may just listen to one reading. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take it rising sign by rising sign, Venus retrograde in Aries and Pisces. So let's begin where it all begins, shall we? The first sign of the zodiac, let's begin with likely Aries risings. So if you're not an Aries ascendant, this reading will also apply if Venus will retrograde in your first house, your 12th house, or both. Now, the first focus of this retrograde is around your aesthetic. It's around how it is that you adorn yourself, how it is that you dress, how it is that you do your makeup. And I have to be forthright, Venus is the planet of beauty. This could be a time in which you are not feeling and sensing your true beauty. You might feel like you're in a little bit of a flop era. You might feel like you have a little bit of the winter uglies, so to speak, even though this won't be, winter in the Northern Hemisphere any longer, at least not for all of it. You could just be feeling a little wonky, not as magnetic, not as beautiful. And with Venus retrograde, it really is an invitation to really look inward, to see the beauty that is within you. Again, because it's not even that you literally are glowing down. It's not that you literally are in a flop era. It's that you feel that you're in a flop era. Like, again, you could be the most beautiful person on planet Earth. Everybody could worship at your feet, as they should. As they should. People could do that, and you could still feel like a toe. Like, sometimes you just have those days in which you feel like a toe on this planet. You just are not feeling cute. You're just not feeling it. Again, Venus retrograde, get right with your soul. If you don't feel it here, you aren't going to be able to see what other people see. And it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you feel good, you're more magnetic, you're more open to the world around you. So this is a time to really conjure your beauty, your magnetism, your attraction from the inside out. And it's not even to say that you need to do anything drastic. This just could be a time in which you are releasing clothes that don't make you feel good. This could be a time that you are reconnecting to past aesthetics or past beauty rituals that used to make you feel really in touch with your own aesthetic. This could be a time also that you're being asked to find that validation from within. Like, maybe you even have a certain experience around, you go out and no one hits on you, or you post an Instagram photo and you don't get that many likes. You feel like your spouse isn't paying attention to you. These experiences aren't coming up for you to feel lame and like a loser. It's coming up for you to find that validation from within, so that you're not contingent upon receiving that adoration from the external world. Because one thing about external beauty is that it does fade. And if we are contingent upon our own beauty and value in compliments and adoration from the external world, we are setting ourselves on a dangerous path. We are essentially betting into a resource that is depreciating. And again, it's not that your beauty literally fades, but if you rank your own sense of worthiness around conventionally attractive standards, that will set yourself up to feel insecure and unlovable and unworthy as your beauty shifts forms. Like, you've really got to tap into that from within and find your most authentic beauty, because that's when beauty radiates out, is when you are true to yourself, you adorn yourself in the ways that make you feel like you, that make you feel powerful, that make you feel strong and magnetic. And regardless of as you age and as your own aesthetic shifts, your beauty won't fade, because you're not hinging it upon what other people find as beautiful or attractive. You're hinging it based on what makes you feel the most you, which is the most beautiful thing of all. And with Venus retrograde in the first house, some of you could be getting back into working out in some regard, particularly in order to feel your best. Some of you might have lost touch with certain beauty rituals. Maybe you stopped gua shaing, or you stopped having a red light mask, or you stop skincare, and with Venus retrograde, you could be getting back into it. Would not be my encouragement to hop into something brand new around your aesthetic, but it could be a time of getting back into something that you used to do for upkeep purposes. Great time to clean the vanity, get rid of old makeup, get rid of old clothes. Think of simplifying and clearing space at this time in order for you to feel inspired again around your own adornment, around your own fashion and style. And again, you know, when we talk about Venus retrograde in your sign, of course, depending on your placements, but sometimes it can be a time in which you are more magnetic to people coming back, particularly those you have unfinished business with, but particularly for you, my love. Do not dilute your power and your potency by making this about them. Venus is retrograde in the first house. If someone comes back, what did you learn about yourself and what you want, what you deserve throughout this connection? If a friend comes back and says, oh yeah, the reason we fell out is because you said this and this that hurt my feelings, with Venus retrograde, reflect. Really take accountability or responsibility around your role in past connections and in past relationships. It's not saying that you are 100% at fault, but in any sort of connection, oftentimes we're not utterly blameless. And if we don't integrate the lesson, we will just keep repeating it. And maybe even with Venus retrograde in Aries, maybe you got to a situation within a past friendship or relationship where it felt like it was easier to just run away and start something new rather than deal with the problem itself. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, it just could be an invitation around, if we do not pass the test, the universe will keep repeating us in the same grade. So maybe you did exit out of that connection, but you might find a similar dynamic emerges within this new friendship or something like this. And whether that person from the past comes back during this time or you just clock the pattern, you're like, ooh, am I the villain? Am I the problem here? This just could be a time of really reflecting so that you genuinely learn the lesson. And with Venus retrograde in Pisces from March 27th to April 12th, which is likely your 12th house, to genuinely put it to bed. Like 12th house is the house of endings. To be like, I recognize the part that I play here and I want to release this pattern. I recognize how that could have been my self-sabotaging, right? Maybe I feared intimacy. That's why I ran away, or I didn't want to be vulnerable, or I didn't want to seem weak. And with Venus retrograde, how can I release that so I'm no longer in this particular cycle? Maybe you had a pattern of idealizing people, putting people on pedestals, love bombing people. This could be something that you are releasing, or being drawn to people who are at a distance, maybe physical distance, maybe emotional distance, because that felt safer. You could romanticize them and idealize them from afar, plus keep yourself safe because you didn't have to feel vulnerable. And even if there wasn't physical distance, emotional distance, maybe there was distance just because of their habits, you know, with the energy of 12th house, maybe even being drawn to people who were in recovery in some way or psychologically going through something. Maybe you lost yourself in an effort to try to fix someone or save someone. You know, you can't do people's push-ups for them. And I just feel that there could be dynamics currently in your life or within your recent past, your recent history, where you lost yourself trying to fix someone or save someone, which a lot of times keeps us safe because it creates distance. You know, if this person is battling their own demons, then I don't have to get super vulnerable with myself. Or for some individuals, if there's like abandonment themes there, then I won't be left. If I'm needed, then I won't be left. And with Venus retrograde in the 12th house, a lot of you could be really clearing out the past. Even if it's people from way back when. You could be dreaming about people from the past, being like, why are you popping up in the ethers? What is going on? And I would encourage, no matter how long ago it was, when people pop up in our dreams, a lot of times it's beyond the person. It's around what it is that they symbolize. So it's just our brain conjuring an image around, well, this person represents your tendency around this in relationships, or this person represents this era of your life. So get real symbolic with it, you know, with Venus retrograde in your 12th house. Contemplate what this person could symbolize. And again, why this person is coming back in your energy is an invitation for you to reflect on what you learned from them. And even there could be like muse energy. There's like someone that you might be connected with in the ethers, and you might have been connected with them for some time. And the two of you could kind of inspire each other in your respective crafts. Like you both might be creative in some way or have like a higher calling, a higher mission. And the connection may have not rooted down in reality. And that's okay. I think it's powerful to have muses and to be inspired by people from afar. But my encouragement for you is to see where it is that this dynamic might be keeping you stuck. Like if you're investing a lot of energy towards this particular connection or feeling like this person is the sole source of inspiration, again, we're all a piece of the divine, right? We're all a piece of divinity. If you find someone who inspires you deeply, this is a gift, but it's important to know that they elicit that creative expression that was always alive in you. It just kind of drew out that divinity, that creativity that was always there. So it's not siphoning your power by feeling like this person is my only inspiration, or maybe for some of you, it's like a soulmate who's not in the picture any longer. Someone you're like connected with spiritually. I know this feels out there for some, but you'll know if this message is for you. Someone that you're connected with in the ethers that you're not connected with within reality. Like you dream of this person, maybe you get signs and synchronicities of this person all of the time. It could be so annoying when you just feel someone's energy tugging on you. And it can be inspiring. Like I think there is an invitation to really funnel that inspiration towards your projects, towards your calling, towards your own discovery, and just not pausing your path waiting for this person or building too much of your world around this person. There's an invitation to really allow this experience to catalyze you, to push your growth forward, but allow the focus to be on you and what the divine is calling you to do. And this is a random message, but some of you may be reflecting at this time around your drinking habits or any other habit that's escapist that may be affecting your beauty or your physicality. Like some of you could be reviewing your decision around vaping all of the time and thinking about how it's drying your skin out, or drinking. You could observe that you feel more tired and you feel more drained because of your drinking. Again, there could be an aesthetic motivation around, okay, this is making me feel not as magnetic, not as beautiful, but also with Venus retrograde in the 12th house, also recognizing rather than facing things when they get hard, I drink it away. You know, 12th house is very escapist. It's self-sabotaging. So it's reviewing where it is that you could be self-sabotaging around, rather than dealing with stress, I just hit my vape. Rather than facing these things head on, I just drink. And yes, maybe it's taking away from my beauty, my vitality, but it's also taking away my ability to face reality and be my best self. This reading is for you if you are a Pisces ascendant and or you have Venus moving retrograde in your second and your first houses, which means this Venus retrograde is really about the relationship that you have to yourself. I want to underline that. I want to highlight it. I want to put little stars around it. That is the focus. Please do not dilute this time period by getting caught up in other arenas of your life. This is a time around, please do not dilute this time period by making it about the drama or the chaos that may be happening around you, because this is eclipse season, at least for part of Venus retrograde. So there could be a lot happening around you, but there's a lot happening within you as well. And I want you to stay conscious of that. Because if we do not set the pace or set the tone around how we expect to be treated, we will be bounced around like a ping pong ball. We will settle for the scraps that other people give us, for the breadcrumbs that other people leave us, if we do not take that opportunity to really nourish and feed ourselves from the inside out. Because this journey starts in your second house, which yes, is around finances. We'll get into that in a moment. But what I want to highlight firstly is it's around self-esteem. And then Venus will retrograde back into your first house of identity. So some of you are fundamentally reworking an identity that you have built. If you have built an identity around, oh, I'm so low maintenance, I don't ask for much, I just kind of shapeshift based around what's needed for me. And this could show up within your romantic life or within your work life. If you allow other people in the outside world to dictate what you are worth or the behavior that you will allow, my love, you will be settling for scraps and for breadcrumbs. And for some of you, you could have worked your identity into that around, like I said, being the one who's low maintenance. I just go with the flow. I just make it work. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to make any waves. Know your worth. Too many people benefit when you do not. The people that are courting you, if you are dating at this time, the people that you are in a relationship with, the people that you work for, or the clients that you work with benefit when you do not stand on business around the treatment that you expect. Like I said earlier, you are being guided during this time to live your life from the inside out. Don't allow the ways that people treat you to say, oh, this must be what I deserve. This must be what I'm worthy of, the treatment that I'm worthy of. Decide from the inside out, this is my expectation around how it is that I'm treated, or this is the rate in which I expect to be paid, or this is the salary that I'm willing to advocate for because I have receipts that back it up, or something like this. It's so important that you do not allow this outer world to dictate to you your worth and your value, because not everybody has the capacity to really see you. And like I said, other people benefit when you do not price yourself appropriately, when you do not value yourself appropriately. This could also show up in other ways, like your time. You know, people are constantly canceling on you and you're just like, oh, no big deal, no big deal. Like, people's actions to you and how they treat you have consequences. I want to communicate that to you because Venus retrograde will align with Saturn. So for some of you, you are dispelling some consequences for the ways that people are treating you. And that might be challenging for you because a lot of you are Pisces ascendants. So you genuinely do hear people out when they have excuses around why they had to cancel on you last minute or what have you. You are empathetic. You see their side. And again, you can see their side, but you can also remove access around, well, then I'm not going to give you any more of my time if you're going to disrespect it in the ways that you did. Or I'm not going to allow you to treat me in the way that you did. Again, I can acknowledge you're on your own journey, you're dealing with your own stuff. That doesn't mean that I need to be wrapped up in your chaos. And some of you are really looking at any sort of tendency to chase, okay? To chase financial deals, to chase romantic interests, also to chase people energetically. Let's break this down. Let's say you are going to purchase a car. And by the way, would not recommend making major financial purchases. You have Venus retrograde in the second house. We'll get into some financial implications in a moment, but I would not actually recommend purchasing a new car. But for the sake of the analogy, you like the car, you value the car, but the salesperson is being so pushy around wanting you to purchase the car that part of you is resistant now because you're like, why are they trying to sell me the car so badly? We have a little bit of resistance. Even if we did value it initially, because it's so pushy, we're kind of like, is something wrong with the car? Why are they trying to sell me on the car so much? Because the thing about value and worth is that it speaks for itself. True confidence is quiet. A lot of times people who overcompensate are not genuinely confident in themselves, because true confidence is just knowing your worth and standing on business within that. And so some of you may be reviewing your tendency around chasing, whether it's chasing a person, chasing a goal. A lot of you are Pisces Risings. You are here to attract things to you. And you don't have to sell someone on your value or prove to someone your value. If they don't see it, then that's on them. Then you could just remove yourself from that situation. Whether it's like a client contract situation, whether it's a work situation, whether it's a romantic relationship, you need to see your worth and you need to stand on business if somebody else doesn't see it for you. It's not that you need to beg and plead and say, please purchase this car, please see my worth. If they don't see it, they don't see it. Like I was saying in my earlier example, if someone can't recognize a Picasso when the donations come in, they will inappropriately price it for $20. And paintings can't talk, but it wouldn't be your job to say, wait, no, I'm a Picasso. I deserve to be priced so much more. Let me prove it to you. Because a lot of times when we feel inclined to prove it to someone else, subconsciously, we want to prove it to ourselves, right? We want that person to see our value and worth so that we believe it. And with Venus retrograde, it's recognizing you need to believe it for yourself and be willing to walk away if other people don't. And on your finances, a lot of you may be reviewing some sort of financial mistake of your past in some way. Maybe you spent money on something impulsively. Maybe you made a dumb mistake that you're still paying for or paying off in some regard. You know, the good thing about money is that it can be earned back. I know sometimes it sucks paying, the stupid tax. Like when we make a dumb financial decision and we have to pay for it down the road, we just like kick ourselves or beat ourselves up around it. Gosh, I cannot believe I made that decision, right? But you need to remember that money can be earned back. A lot of things cannot be earned back. For example, our time, right? Invested in situations that do not see our value, but money itself can be earned back. But the time that you waste kicking yourself and beating yourself up around making some sort of dumb financial mistake, you can't get that back. So with Venus retrograde, there could be an energy of like forgiving yourself for the past, particularly as it relates to your finances. This can be a time in which money that's owed to you could come back around. This could be a time that something that you thought you paid off rears its ugly head. You thought you paid for something, but you get a bill in the mail and you're like, no, I thought this was paid off. With Venus retrograde, you may find that you are inspired at this time to go through belongings to see if they're a genuine reflection of who it is that you are, especially with Venus retrograde in Pisces from March 27th to April 12th, most likely in your first house of aesthetic and identity. So some of you could be going through your clothes, through your makeup to see what's a genuine reflection of you. And I see a lot of you could be releasing clothes you no longer wear, but releasing stuff that you no longer align with. You know, Venus retrograde in the first house, a lot of you could be fundamentally shifting your self-concept, is what it seems. And really wanting your belongings to affirm the vision that you hold yourself within. Around if you have certain things that just feel like they belong to a prior version of self, or they don't make you feel confident or magnetic, why are you still holding on to them? And sometimes with Venus retrograde, we can think, well, maybe one day, maybe one day, maybe one day. If you have not worn something in a year, let it go. Like a huge part around attracting abundance is trusting in the circulation of things. Like as you donate, as you give to others, you do receive more because you have the space to receive more. So if you feel like your life is difficult and cramped, you feel like you have so much stuff all through your house, you can't even think. If you feel like it's hard for you to get ready in the morning because your dresser is overflowing with clothes that don't really inspire you, this is a time to really simplify, release, let go, and get Marie Kondo with it. Hold things in your hands and ask, does it spark joy, right? Because a lot of you are Pisces risings, and even if you're not, if Venus will retrograde in Pisces within your first house, it's important to know that we can manifest via how it is that we adorn ourselves, how it is that we dress. An intuitive told me once that if you ever feel stuck in life, go out and buy a new pair of shoes. And I'm not saying you need to impulse buy during this time, quite the opposite. But the reason they said that is because Pisces within astrology governs the feet. And there's this contemplation around stepping into new shoes represents stepping into this new identity, stepping into this new self-concept. And you don't need to actually buy new shoes for this. Maybe it's dusting off shoes you haven't worn for a while, right? With Venus retrograde. But even if it's not shoes, it's like adorning yourself in the ways that your higher self would adorn themselves. Getting ready in the morning in the ways that your higher self would had your dream life already manifested. It's like tapping into who you are, who your higher self is, and bridging the gap by dressing like them, doing your makeup like them, doing your hair like them. That's just one step closer towards that version of yourself. And it would be my encouragement not to cut your hair drastically. Even if your higher self would have the bob, pause on that. Okay, nothing drastic, but it is a time to get creative with what it is that you already have. And if you're not feeling inspired, honestly, a great way to get inspired is going through the belongings that we already have. It's a great abundance practice as well, going through our belongings, because we recognize how much that we have, truly. And maybe there's a call to donate, and that opens up space for us to receive, for that to circulate back to us. I mentioned this earlier, but if you feel like there's been certain things that you've put a lot of energy into, you chased a certain situation and don't feel like you got anything out of it, have an intention this Venus retrograde around, I call back all of the energy that I put out into the world that went unused, undervalued, underappreciated. I call it back to myself now in the form of compensation. You could say if you want it back in the form of compensation, random money could pop up that has been owed to you, either literally from financial ways or just energetically. You put things out into the world and it's being returned to you in a financial way. Or you can also add in through inspiration, right? Or through love. Like energy is returned to us in many different ways. And this could be a powerful time to really call it back to yourself, and to know that your value, your worthiness is not wrapped up into other people's ability and capacity to receive what you had to give them. Call that energy back to yourself and see how powerful it is, truly. You were just pouring into something that didn't have the capacity to receive it. But when you call it back to self, you'll be like, wow, I'm powerful. I was just putting that energy towards the wrong things. I was trying to pour it into cups that didn't have the capacity to hold it. And that helps you recognize it doesn't say anything around your worth or your value, right? Because sometimes we can get caught up around, well, if I really had something to offer, then they would be able to receive it and they would have changed for me, or they would have transformed for me, or my boss would have given me that raise, or what have you. Right? Boss would have given me that raise. Sometimes we can feel like these external circumstances say something about you. But it gets really powerful when you call the energy back to yourself and you recognize, no, it's just directing that towards the wrong source. With Venus retrograde, choose to align yourself to people and projects and work situations that genuinely see your value, that genuinely can hold and receive what you have to give this planet. And if there is energy out there, there's situations where you poured a lot in, you hustled and you chased and you didn't get what you wanted, call it back to self, redirect it into vehicles and outlets that have the capacity to receive what you have to give. Because my love, you have a lot to give. And there can be an energy around people hitting you up from the past who owe you money, or you owe them money, something like this. There can even be belongings from the past coming back to you. You left a sweatshirt at your friend's house forever ago and they're like, hey, did you leave this at my house? This could be an aligned time for this. You could also find there's wonkiness with your possessions. Things are breaking. It would not be my encouragement to go run out and buy something brand new right away. You could also find things are missing, like sometimes Venus retrograde can present a little bit of weirdness there. And with Venus retrograde in the first house, yes, there could be an energy around unfinished business circling back to you, but all of the people that you could hear from, the ex-friends that could hit you up, are really an opportunity and an invitation to reflect on what you learned from these dynamics and from these situations about you. If you are an Aquarius ascendant, or Venus retrograde will transit through your third and second houses, this message is for you, this reading is for you, and this Venus retrograde story for you is about saying what you mean and meaning what you say. And past times that you have not done that coming back to bite you in some regard. But also coming back to bite you in some regard. Something fascinating about this Venus retrograde is that Venus is not alone in its retrograde journey through the early degrees of Aries and the late degrees of Pisces. It's joined by Mercury, who is covering the territory of nearly exactly the same portion of the sky. So the two are on one another's heels. And I wanted to mention this to you because Venus retrograde in the third house, this has a lot to do with communication, and the planet of communication will, for most of you, also be retrograde at some point in the third house. So there's a lot of emphasis around your communication and potentially where it is that you have not communicated the truth to somebody else, maybe to a lover, maybe to a friend, maybe to a sibling. Maybe there was a fear that the truth or delivering it in a very honest way would be inflammatory, right? With the energy of Aries. Sometimes if we feel like our words are going to inflict pain, we don't want to say it, even if it really needs to be said. And so maybe some of you within the past, you like ghosted a situation, you didn't talk about the hard thing, or even in an existing connection, there's a certain topic that you're brushing under the rug because you don't want to deal with the reaction that it could inflict. You know, genuine love and connection is not just telling people around you what it is that they want to hear at any moment in time. Some of you could be biting your tongue as it relates to certain advice, honest advice that you really want to give. Some of you could have checked out of a certain situation because you did not want to be honest about it. And some of you could even just be revisiting, maybe even from the distant past, the words that you did not say. You could feel they are eroding you from the inside out. Like some of you might even be dealing with some anger around the things that you did not get to say, or certain situations where you feel like you didn't get to say your piece. And my encouragement for you is really do burn letters at this time. I would deeply encourage you to do burn letters. Put it all into a letter. Let yourself be as vicious, as cruel, as honest, as straight up about it. Like I said, Venus retrograde in Aries, I think a lot of people are not going to be as cognizant or as conscious of social norms and things that we say in order to be polite or keep the peace. But I want you to have a journal entry or a burn letter where you allow yourself to let that out of your system. For some of you, I feel like it could even be like vitriol or just like hateful words. And I don't feel like it's actually true to you. I mean, we all have a shadow side, but I feel like when we repress, when we don't allow our thoughts and our words to have an outlet, they fester and they become something more poisonous than they were ever intended to be. So if you are holding on to a situation where you didn't get the closure that you wanted, and either the words that were not said to you or the words that you did not say, there could be a revisiting of that. That is not me saying you need to go back to someone from your past in order to get that closure. Genuinely, a lot of times we think it's going to feel better than it actually does to tell someone off, right? Or tell them about themselves. All it really does a lot of time is open up wounds that we are in the process of healing, and sometimes being in that space around another thing just sends us down this path around finding more that we want to essentially unload on somebody else, and it's not always best for you. A lot of times it could disappoint us because we feel like, gosh, I thought I was meant to feel better after we had this final conversation, or after I finally told you this piece that I hadn't told you, or after I finally got to unload how I really feel about the situation. But it typically doesn't feel as satisfactory as we thought that it would. And that's why I'm encouraging you to find an outlet within burn letters, put it into music, put it into poetry, put it into your journal, talk it out with ChatGPT, talk it out with a friend. Like, definitely allow it an outlet, but I just feel a lot of times when we allow that outlet to be the person who inflamed all of what we want to express, we don't exactly get the reaction that we wanted to. And sometimes it just reopens the wound, right? It just rips the Band-Aid off on how far we've been around healing. And we tend to think that if we say this to somebody else, then they'll be able to hear it, and that will give us the grace and the space to move on. But unfortunately, you can say all that you want. A lot of people will be committed to misunderstanding you. Like, la, 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 right? You could tell someone what they did, but they may not be in a space where they're able to take guilt and accountability. And if you are delaying your healing journey until that day that it magically happens, my friend, you could be waiting for some time. And I think Venus retrograde in Aries is about us getting impatient about around our own value, that your value is not embedded in someone else being able to take accountability of what they've done to you, or being able to hear you or understand your point of view. You need to understand you. And that's where the journals and the burn letters are helpful, because sometimes that's the closure that you needed to find around, I didn't need to express it to this person. I just needed to have an outlet for this, to express it to myself, so that I'm able to read this back and see that I was valid in my standpoint, and I can walk away with my side of the street clean. Them, I'm not so sure. And again, that's not right for everybody. Some of you could be like, no, Haley, come on, I actually really do need to tell this person. Like, I need to communicate something, even if it's not angry. Maybe you didn't tell someone why you needed to leave, or why it couldn't work out, or something like this. Venus retrograde could be a time that you're wanting to say the hard thing, potentially, and allowing yourself to feel freer as a result of that. If you feel like for you to forgive yourself and for you to move forward, you need to communicate something, just ensure that you're doing it for you and not for the other person. Because a lot of times we don't get the reaction that we want. We don't get that moment that we were looking for. And if we were hinging upon, this is what is meant to make me feel better, we are setting ourselves up to be disappointed. So if you do feel like it's important for you to say something, like there's a certain dynamic where it's important for you to speak your truth, even if it's been years or something like this, it's not my discouraging against it. Just ensure you're doing it for you. Okay, Venus retrograde in Aries, do it for you, because you cannot guarantee that somebody else will be able to hear you. We tend to think that telling someone about themselves and sending the long text, we tend to think that they're going to have this moment, this epiphany around, wow, they really have a point. But naturally, it's human nature where when someone tells us something that we could be doing better, or criticism, it's human nature where we automatically are defensive. automatically. It's important for human beings to feel like they have free will. So when someone's trying to tell them what to do or what they could have done better, our first instinct is to be defensive. And so you may find your points are valid, but that doesn't mean that somebody else is mature enough in order to hear it. And maybe somebody even swings back around to you and is telling you about yourself, right? And rather than going tit for tat, right, with this Aries energy, there could be an invitation to look inward, to take accountability around it. Some of you could define yourself, and it's interesting because it's a lot in Aquarius Risings, which Aquarius is an air sign. You tend to be very well-spoken. But for some of you, you could define yourself as not being a good communicator. And there might be certain things festering of like the things that you didn't say, the things that you didn't express, the things that you let go and you swept under the rug. And with Venus retrograde, you could be feeling those words unsaid begin to like rise up within you and like stack and layer in you. And again, doesn't need to be directed towards a person. You could be in therapy about issues that happened a long time ago, talking about it, writing about it, journaling about it, doing burn letters. I just see that there's an energy around you finding a platform to have those. And another thing, you know, like sometimes when you let a certain situation simmer, there's elements around and another thing, right? Because the thing around healing is that when we're in the thick of it, when we're in the thick of the energy and the dynamic, we don't always see things through the lens that we see once we're exited out of the situation. It's like if you were to watch a movie and there's a huge plot twist at the end, the next time you watch that movie or replay those memories or those events, you're going to view it differently because now you know the plot twist. You know how it ended up. So you're going to look through the history or the unfolding of the plot with a new perspective and notice little clues that you didn't notice before. And that's where we get those. And another thing, and what about this? Because there could have been certain things that we brushed under the rug that now we're like, no, that bothers me. And that's not necessarily the person who inflicted it's job to heal, but you could just find there's elements of you kind of going through journals or revisiting your own narrative of certain situations and finding elements. And it doesn't mean that you're literally moving backwards, not at all. In fact, you're just kind of digging for those pieces and those hints and those clues that will allow you to move forward. Some of you could even be going through old journals and see like, there is a song in here, there's a novel in here. If you're a writer, if you're on social media, look at your drafts, look at your short stories that you've started. Some of you could look back and be like, wait, this is actually pretty good. And some of you, if you are on social media, could be really reviewing your social media if it feels like an authentic representation of self, if you feel like you're playing it safe, if you feel like you're trying to people please or communicate what you think other people want you to hear. Like I said, Venus retrograde in Aries, a lot of us are losing our patience. It's also eclipse season, which tends to be a little wacky. And we're losing our patience. Like when things feel wacky, what's the point of trying to keep it polite and keep it safe? It's like, I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to talk about the topics that I really want to talk about. That being said, this can be a time of consequences of past things that you've said catching up. So with Venus retrograde, there could have been certain promises that you made on your social media that now your followers are like, hello, where's this? Or maybe even certain promises in general that you've made out to the world, promises to your sibling or something like this that are being revisited at this time. Again, mean what you say what you mean, say the hard thing even if it's hard, whether that's to somebody else or to yourself. Again, a lot of you are getting really honest with yourself as you're rewatching the movie. And some of you, even if there were words that you shared in moments of wrath with your partner or something like this, you could have those words that were communicated come back around. You know, someone could hit you with and another thing type of energy, or I just think it's funny how, you know what I'm talking about. You know, somebody else could do that to you and want you to be accountable for past things that you've said that maybe were honest, yes, with Aries energy, but maybe a little blunt or hurtful in some regard. There could be a story like that alive. Venus retrograde will also move through your second house, which pulls in themes of self-esteem, of values, of finances. I want to share overall, this would not be a great time to purchase a new vehicle specifically. I mean, any major financial purchase when Venus retrograde in the second house could have to be redone or revised, or you have to get a second opinion, or something has to be reworked in some regard, but particularly vehicles and technology, okay? Because the third house influence there, I would be mindful around that. You could find that work that you've put on your automobile, you're having to get redone in some way. You could find that your phone is a little buggy. Overall, your technology could be a little buggy at this time, and it would not be my encouragement to impulsively run out and buy something new, right? And with Venus retrograde within Pisces, within the second house, outside of finances, yes, a lot of you could be reworking finances. Also looking at where it is that you've brushed things under the rug because you didn't want to look at it. If I don't look at my bank account, it won't hurt me type energy, right? And it will, and it can, you know. Saturn's also most likely transiting your second house. Some of you could find bills that you thought that you paid comes back around, or you're having to review something that's happening within your finances. It would not be my encouragement to make any major financial decisions. You know, even if you get a new financial opportunity with Venus passing Neptune, if it sounds too good to be true, it most likely is. And with Neptune energy and Pisces energy, we tend to have our blinders on because we want to buy into the dream that we can, you know, make $10,000 a day working from home or what have you. Like, be very mindful when it comes to themes like that. If you are a Capricorn rising or Venus retrograde will transit through your fourth house and your third house, this message is for you. And for you, the focus of this Venus retrograde is going to be around home, family, emotional state, as well as siblings, extended family members, communication, social media, siblings, and neighbors. So that's a lot of different topics I just threw your way. Let's break it down. Let's start with where Venus retrograde will most likely start in for you. When it transits Aries March 1st to March 27th, that will most likely be concentrated within your fourth house of the natal chart. And the fourth house is what the rest of the chart is built upon. It's our roots. So it represents our family roots, right? Our family ties, the family of origin, as well as our ancestry. And with Venus retrograde, a lot of you could be wanting to reconnect to certain elements of your ancestry. Maybe you have certain belongings that maybe you're having to look through someone who has passed or someone within your family. Maybe you're having to look through their belongings, maybe even their jewelry with the energy of Venus. But some of you could have to be going through or helping a family member out with their possessions in some regard. This could also be your possessions around your home. A lot of you could be decluttering at this time, really wanting to simplify. With the energy of Aries, there could be some impulsiveness here, but it might actually be helpful in some regard. If you feel like you just have so much stuff that you cannot breathe, this is the energy around rip the band-aid off. I need to donate some stuff. I need to release some stuff. Or you could be doing that for somebody else. If somebody has been hoarding items around their home with Venus retrograde, there can be a review around utilizing this more direct energy of Aries for good, around what do you really need this for? Like being very honest and direct, I feel is a very specific storyline for some. Now for others of you, you could be doing this with yourself around, do I really need this? Like being honest with yourself. Do I really need this? I have not used this couch since 2008. You know, maybe I'm holding on to it because of how I was raised. I felt like I had to hold on to everything. I felt like I was constantly in fight or flight. I never felt safe. So that shows up in my home environment. I hold on to things because I want to feel safe. And I worry for the day around, what if I'm going to need this, you know, soggy green couch from 2008 in the future? And with Venus retrograde in Aries, it's like recognizing your safety is not built into your home environment. It's something that you create and carve for yourself. And again, you could be helping someone else out with that, or just going through their financial affairs or something like this. There might be a degree of needing to be very bluntly honest with people in your family. There could be an old conflict that comes up at this time. You know, Venus is a planet of peace, but it's in the sign of Aries, which is around conflict. So there could be an old issue that's brought up within family that's able to reach a peaceful resolution. And that doesn't always mean everybody is just like in a circle holding hands. Sometimes a peaceful resolution is taking a pause from it, allowing yourself to cool down before you go back into it. Sometimes it's putting a certain issue to bed. Sometimes it's just recognizing this is not someone that I can have within my world. It's continually inflaming this wound within me. And for my peace and my safety, I have to remove myself, because it's interesting. For some of you, I'm feeling that there's this energy around you having to assert yourself and advocate for yourself and what's going to make you happy and what's going to bring you peace. You know, I'm talking to a lot of Capricorn Risings, and there can be elements of having Capricorn placements around having undue pressure on you or taking on responsibilities of things that are truly not your responsibilities to take on to begin with. So for some of you, there can be certain things that you've been handling or striving to keep together for family members that you recognize with this Venus retrograde. This is not my responsibility. This is not my job. And I am destroying myself trying to be what you need me to be, but I have needs too. Like, I genuinely feel some of you are coming to the space around connecting to your own fighting spirit. And maybe you typically direct that towards the people that you love. And with Venus retrograde, it's like, no, I've got to fight for myself. You know, they say, not to be corny, but when you take a flight, they say you have to put on your own oxygen mask before you can put on others. And I'm just seeing that for some of you, there's this energy around recognizing that being entangled in certain situations or trying to do certain push-ups for other family members who won't do the push-ups for themselves is causing you to feel resentful and angry, which poisons your soul. And so yes, definitely strive to resolve it. But I see some of you are having to kind of like choose yourself or advocate for yourself in certain family dynamics. This could also be roommate dynamics. I'm also seeing that some of you could be really reviewing how you were taught to view yourself. You might have very authentic sides to yourself around you're naturally more of a loud person, you're more of a shy person, you're more of a social person, you're more of an introvert, whatever it is. It's like there's core components to who it is that you are, that you were told it was not okay to be that way, is the energy that it feels. Around feeling like you had to create this mask in order to mask who you truly were and be who you needed to be, or what your family thought you should be. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, a lot of you could be like reconnecting to the roots of who it is that you are and the authentic sides of yourself that you suppressed in this effort to fit in or to gain approval or validation. And some of you could be reconnecting to certain elements of that. Some of you could be going back to a place that has significance to you or significance to your family and almost reconnecting to certain embedded parts of your soul. Some of you could be looking at your home environment and wanting to beautify it. It would not be my encouragement to embark on any major renovation project at this time. It may take longer, it may be more expensive than you anticipated, but it can be a great time to see where you can infuse more beauty in your home environment, but more importantly, more authenticity in your home environment with the energy of Aries, making your living environment a genuine reflection and representation of you. And making an environment where you don't feel like you have to constantly be on guard or be in fight or flight mode, something like that. And with Venus retrograde, maybe some of you with roommates or with family members, if you live with them, you could be reviewing what can make our home more peaceful. And also, how can I find more peace within my soul? Because I feel like some of you are dealing with feelings of feeling very resentful, of feeling very angry. And some of you might be like, this isn't even me. Like, I don't even like how angry I've become. Maybe the reasons of why you feel angry or resentful are valid. But I feel like with Venus retrograde, there's a genuine acknowledgement around how can I create more peace within me? How can I find more acceptance where I don't feel like I constantly have to fight with the world or suppress this anger that may be around the things that I did not say? Because Venus retrograde goes into the third house. So again, the anger could be in other arenas of life. You could even be holding on to anger that's generational, like ancestrally, things that you are mad about, like sacred rage that's been passed on, which is asking to be purged and released. But for some of you, it could be around things that you did not say, or even things that you did not hear. I'm seeing it both ways around, I wish I could tell my caregiver this, or I wish my caregiver would have told me this, right? Like certain things where it's either what was said or what was not said. And that could be reviewed during this time, because when Venus retrogrades into Pisces from March 27th to April 12th, for most of you, this will go into your third house of communication. And so there is a focus around what was said, what was not said. Some of you are dealing with consequences or karma around things that you said, maybe empty promises that you made, but some of you are recognizing the empty promises that were made to you. And I would really encourage, especially if it's festering a lot of frustration, resentment, bitterness, anger, I would really encourage you to see where it is that you can give those emotions a voice and a platform. Because a lot of times when we suppress and we suppress and we suppress, that's when things layer. That's when things build. And they can get a lot more sinister and nefarious for ourselves. You know, it's like poison that we hold on to when we don't give our anger or our resentment or any sort of emotion that you're dealing with, when you don't give it a platform. Like truly, to heal it, you have to feel it. And I know it's so freaking painful, but there is an ask to feel it. And potentially for some of you, you could feel inclined that you're wanting to say something to someone, you're wanting to confront someone for something. Some of you could even apologize to other people as well. Like if you've been doing some sort of 12-step program or something like that, like the step where you go and apologize to people who you feel like you've done wrong. And again, what I want to tell you is that with Venus retrograde, it's about you. And yes, maybe there is an energy around wanting to hear someone's apology if they've done you wrong, or wanting to apologize if you've done someone else wrong. But at the end of the day, you can't apologize hoping that you'll get a certain reaction, right? And feeling like if that person forgives you, then you're free and clear. And you also won't be immediately healed if somebody else apologizes to you. Like truly, forgiveness is an inside job. And if you do feel like you want to communicate something to someone, you have to do it for you. You cannot do it to get a certain reaction, because a lot of times you'll feel disappointed. There might be certain conversations of the past that don't go in the way that you thought that they were going to go with Venus on Neptune. And a lot of you are recognizing that words carry weight with Venus retrograde aligning with Saturn. Words carry weight, both the words that have not been said as well as the words said. And so I would encourage you to be very intentional if you do feel like you want to communicate something to someone where there's been harmful, hurtful things that were shared. Some of you could be wanting to go back to a past situation with a family member, with a cousin, with a sibling, with a neighbor in order to make things right, in order to smooth things over. Or some of you aren't literally going back to the situation, but you're kind of giving it over to the divine. You're surrendering it over to God with Venus retrograde in Pisces around, okay, you're going to have to take this up with God and your spirit team and your spirit guides, because I don't have the time or energy to tell you all of the ways that you did me wrong, right? Like that's on you. That's on your conscience. And again, I think a lot of you are wanting to do whatever possible to clear your conscience, or to be able to feel like you can move forward without guilt or without feeling bad about yourself. Like there's an energy around putting what it is that you want to say in a burn letter. Some of you could, yes, say something to someone else, but it's really wanting to clear your own conscience and not hinging that feeling of forgiveness around getting a certain response or someone showing up in a certain way, because that's their spiritual journey. That's not yours. You need to focus on yours. So if it's important for your spiritual journey to seek penance, to seek forgiveness or something like that, absolutely do that at this particular moment. But know that other people's journeys are their journeys, right? And we can say what we want to say, but it doesn't necessarily mean that other people will be able to hear us. I also feel some of you could be reconnecting with a skill, particularly like a spiritual skill, maybe like tarot or astrology or something like that. Some of you could be reconnecting with some sort of practice that you lost touch with. Some of you could be reconnecting with a certain skill that you've lost touch with. You could pick up learning about something that you've lost touch with. Some of you could be rethinking the aesthetic of your social media feed. like your Instagram. You could be wanting it to look different in some regard, or if you're a content creator, you could be rethinking that in some way. If you are a Sagittarius ascendant or Venus will retrograde within your 5th and 4th houses, this reading is for you. And when it comes to Venus starting its retrograde journey, likely in your 5th house of romance, I would not be shocked if a beau from your romantic past does try to spin the block during this time. And if that does occur, it is not that this situationship from 2021 is truly the love of your life, okay? And the cosmos is bringing the two of you together. Not necessarily. Yes, Venus retrograde, we can reconcile or review where there's unfinished business within our love life, but the emphasis is really around you. If you do hear from Joey from 2021 or whoever from any point in time, 2021 is just an example. It's less so around, oh, look, they came back. That means I'm lovable and I'm worthy and I've got the sauce. Okay, you already know that. You likely are a Sagittarius rising. You don't need somebody spinning the block, trying to get a second chance with you to prove that to you. And in fact, when we indulge those feelings of our ego being stroked around, yeah, I knew they couldn't stay away, we are outsourcing our own validation. Because if we affirm, I am hot and desirable and lovable when people are wanting to get with me, that also affirms the opposite of that around I am not lovable and desirable if people are not trying to get with me, or if I have certain exes from the past who have not spun the block. Right? Be mindful where it is that you allow these experiences to make you feel some type of way, because ultimately the goal is to be unswayed, to be unmoved in reference to your own value and opinion of yourself. Because some of you could go through a little bit of a lull with your dating life at this time. Like it could be a little quiet. You feel like you're not getting the romantic attention that you are used to getting. Even within your long-term connection, if you're in one, you could feel like there isn't as much banter or as much romance or as much like playful energy. And maybe you're even thinking back to the early stages of dating this person, courting this person, and wondering, how do we get back to that? And sure, you can pull in elements of your past flirtationship or what have you into your existing long-standing partnership, but it's not just about turning back the clock, right? It's not about hitting the rewind button on the VCR. Random example, who even uses VCRs anymore? It's not about going back to exactly how it was, because that's not how life works. But maybe there's elements around being able to reconnect with old date nights that the two of you used to go on, or old ways that the two of you used to banter and bicker with one another in a playful way, of course, that you can reintroduce into your existing dynamic. It's not about moving backwards or wanting things to be exactly as they were, but seeing, what do I really miss about that season of our courtship? Do I miss the playfulness? Do I miss the flirting? Do I miss the intimacy? 5th house can be around that. And how can we reclaim or integrate some of those components that I'm missing into our relationship now? Some of you who are single could be really thinking about your dating history, what you learned from each person, and how those experiences got you clearer on what it is that you desire, what it is that you truly want. Please do not view anyone that you've dated as a mistake or a waste of time, because everybody, every connection shows us something. Every relationship is an opportunity to deepen the relationship with ourselves. Everyone that we connect with is on the path to finding our life partnership, if that's what you're after, or what have you. So if you're holding on to anger or frustration of someone who wasn't able to show up for you, or someone who did you dirty, again, feel your feelings. Venus retrograde could be you processing and healing from past romantic entanglements, but know that they did teach you something, and every frog you kiss gets you closer to the prince. Okay. And it's also, some of you could be like decentering romantic attention. Like I said, not finding your value and your beauty wrapped up into whether other people are trying to get at you. right? And focusing on your own magnetism, reconnecting with hobbies that you used to do, like falling in love with life itself. And if you feel like you don't have hobbies, this is a time to go back to the drawing board. What did you used to like to do when you were younger, when you were little? Maybe you used to love to sing. You used to love to play the xylophone. Random, but maybe this is your nudge to get back into the xylophone, because this is a random example, but there was a TikTok that I watched once. I wish I knew who the creator was, but it basically said, a lot of times when we're craving romantic love, it is a misdirection of our creative urges. It's not that you will not have love in this lifetime and that you will not have a very satisfactory connection within this lifetime, but if you find yourself continually pining and yearning and feeling like your life only feels like it has meaning if you have a crush, that's really just creative energy that you can pull into other arenas, pour into a hobby, turn it into making your life into a work of art. And if someone comes back, you know, it could be someone that you had like a little spicy love affair with, okay, with the energy of Aries. It could be, you know, a little spicy, passionate energy. Be mindful about whether you want to hop back into that dynamic with that person. And also just be mindful if you get offended when certain people from your romantic past don't spin the block, okay? Like a lot of times people spin the block or try to get a second chance with you because they want to see if they can get access to you. So really be intentional before you just grant access. Again, maybe you could reignite that relationship with Joey from 2021 and it's going to be great and passionate and steamy, but sometimes we can find we get into this situation, and once the adrenaline wears off and the high wears off and the hormones of jumping back in with this person taper off, sometimes we are faced with, oh, you haven't changed, or it's the same thing. Like this person is who they are, right? Venus retrograde in Aries. Aries is very honest and upfront. Like I feel like some of you are going to have some post clarity. I'll say that, if you catch my drift, around, oh, you're still who you were. Because sometimes with distance, we can dress things up, we can idealize people, or we could feel like if we jump back into it, it's going to be different this time. But a lot of times people are who they are. And again, you don't need to be flattered if somebody wants a second chance with you. You also don't have to feel like a loser if people don't spin the block with you. They might just think that you're intelligent enough that you won't give this person a second chance. Because I'm of the belief, the people that you are here to have very fulfilling relationships with will get it right the first time. Like someone who really wants to be with you will not put themselves in a position to lose you. Okay, so I would be cautious before extending a second chance to someone that you've had a romantic past with. But again, some of you could be reconnecting with a creative hobby during this time. Some of you could go back to the creative drawing board, like paintings that you've done, films that you've done, and reworking them in order to finally complete them. Like there could be a nudge around wanting to complete the incomplete as it relates to creative ideas from the past that you've initiated in some regard. If you have children, this could be a time of reviewing some sort of argument with them, some sort of conflict, or there could be something within their life that's really significant at this time. Some of you could even be reviewing if you want children, if that's something that you value for your own path, especially with Venus retrograde in Pisces, which happens from March 27th till April 12th. So it's like the second half of the Venus retrograde, which likely for you will be in your 4th house. And this brings up family themes, which is why a lot of you could really be thinking about the home that you want to create, the children that you want to have, if that's something that you value. Maybe it's an energy around getting to your truth, your authenticity, and recognizing, I don't see that as part of my reality, as part of my path. And I'm not wrong for being the way that I am. Or maybe it is part of your path and you're wanting to unlearn what has been programmed into you around how children should be raised or what is acceptable within your family unit. Something like this could also be alive here. Outside of that, some of you could find that there's certain things that you said it's fine to, that it really wasn't fine. It wasn't fine. It wasn't fine. Why did I say it was fine? And that could show up around your home environment. That could show up around a family dynamic. That could even show up around something emotionally. Like I'm talking to a lot of Sagittarius Rising. So your MO is typically like, let me just get to the other side of this. Let me focus on the future. Let me keep moving forward. Like typically that's how you navigate through life. And that's a beautiful facet, don't get me wrong. But I feel like you might be surprised because there could be things that you've suppressed that come back around. I thought I got to the other side of this. I thought I'd healed past this. I thought I'd moved past this. And Venus retrograde is like, just when you thought. Just when you thought. And sometimes that can give us an illusion that we are not proceeding forward when old memories from our childhood are coming to the surface, or when old themes from our romantic past are coming to the surface. But it's really not. I think of it as almost like neural synapses, like firing and dying off, right? Around, sometimes it's, that memory coming to the surface so you could fully purge it and release it. Because maybe there's elements of when these things happen, you were just like, gotta distract myself, gotta move towards new adventure. And like, wherever it is that you go, there you are. What we do not feel, we conceal. It's not that it disappears. We conceal it. And then it comes to the surface. Some of you could find dynamics from your past, family dynamics, things such as this, come to the surface. And fourth house is also our emotions. So again, it could just be emotional matters come to the surface. It could have to deal with romance. Some of you could be dealing with financial themes within family. Maybe you said that it was okay, that you were giving up your part of the trust or something like this, but now you're recognizing that's not sitting right with your soul. Maybe even with certain roommates, you said that something was okay around the home and certain rules that you guys set up around the home, but now you're realizing it's kind of not okay. Like maybe you were a little bit too permissive of your roommate's boyfriend or something like that being over all the time, and now it's like annoying. Like Venus retrograde could be reviewing the rules, with Venus retrograde hitting Saturn, of the home environment in some regard, or also of family dynamics. Again, that could involve money, that could involve land or property, but there could be a review of this. This message is for you if you fall in one of two categories. This reading is for you if you are a Scorpio ascendant, also known as Scorpio Rising, and this message is for you if Venus retrograde will impact your 6th and 5th houses of your astrological natal chart. And for you, the story will likely start with Venus retrograde in Aries transiting your 6th house. And when Venus is retrograde in your 6th house, this brings up elements of your day-to-day, elements of your health, elements of your work, elements of your animals. 6th house is the very mundane aspects of our life. And with the Venus retrograde, you could be getting kind of sick of not having moments for yourself, like moments of pleasure that you do just for you. Like you can feel like a lot of your energy is going to making sure everybody else is fed and taken care of, and maybe even frustration around feeling like you're doing your coworkers' jobs. Like with Venus retrograde in Aries, you could be asking like, what's in it for me? What is in it for me? And even looking at your day-to-day and getting very frustrated and drained. And even I'm seeing for some of you like resentful and burnt out around, I do all of these things. I never have time for myself. I never have time to take a bath or to move my body or to do the things that I value. I'm constantly of service to everybody else. What about me? Could be the vibe here. And you're not wrong for that, right? Like you should have a schedule that allows you those moments to do what it is that you value, the moments that you are a little selfish. And you could be looking at your schedule and being like, where's the me in this? Where's the self-care in this? And with Venus retrograde in Aries, there could be an opportunity here to really look at what's on your plate. Because when we say yes to things, when we take on more to our plate, but we do so with a resentful, bitter heart, like, of course, we're going to have resentment, right? If you say, well, I have to do this because they always expect me to do this, and then you do it just with like hatred, poisoning your heart, like that's not true service. Like giving is an energy where you are truly devoting your energy to it, not bringing in your poison of your resentment and your frustration around the things that you really should be doing with your time. Again, I'm not saying you're wrong for this. I just want you to look at that. If you're feeling very bitter around helping everybody else and feeling like nobody's helping you, what is making you feel like you have to do everything for everybody else? Sometimes this can bring up energies of where we feel like a martyr within our own world. Like really question, really look at that. Like if you feel constantly drained and depleted, but you're still taking on more, really see where it is you can shift self-concept around always being seen as the one who does it all. the one who is always busy, right? Because I see some of you could have woven into your identity around, well, I'm the one who does things for everybody and I'm the one who's always busy. And with Venus retrograde, it's like, at what cost? Where's the me in this? And honestly, I'm not as effective when I show up for these things feeling bitter and being resentful. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, this could be a time to really look at your schedule and see, what am I doing out of undue obligation and where can I stick up for myself in my schedule? If there are certain clients that request more and more of my workday, where is it that I can advocate for myself around, no, that day does not work for me? Or there are certain coworkers who just give me their tasks. Where can I advocate for myself here? And you can keep it sweet, right? Venus itself is a sweet planet, but it could be an energy around reviewing what's on your plate and what's fair. And it may take some advocacy on your part with the energy of Aries. Some of you may have some work projects from the past come back around. You could be beautifying some sort of project. Maybe you wrote the proposal and now you're beautifying it, right? You're making it pretty. Some of you could be reviewing the terms of your employment or the jobs that you do and seeing where it is that you can reclaim some of your time by wasting less of it. You know, Aries is a very impatient energy. And I think with Venus retrograde, a lot of us are getting impatient about the right things, right? Around not wanting to be patient, to be in an environment that values you. Like maybe with Venus retrograde, you're looking at your workplace and you're questioning if you feel valued, and you are perhaps getting this fiery impetus to go seek pastures where you are valued, right? And not waiting and waiting and waiting for things to get better. Now, it would not be my recommendation to quit in the midst of Venus retrograde, but really look at that. And I also think some of you might have certain work processes that you could simplify or streamline during this time. If you do certain things that take a chunk of time, see where it is that you can automate them. Like, get impatient about your own time. If there's just small, meaningless tasks that just take time from you, this is a time to streamline, simplify, automate. Sometimes it does take time that you invest on the back end, but you will be freeing up more of your time moving forward. And you could be organizing your workplace files. Be mindful because Mercury will also be retrograde at this time, so I wouldn't do anything crazy technological, but it could be a time to really see, where are my time wasters, right? What is taking my time away, and how can I get urgent with the value of my time? You know, some of the most successful people on this planet are very particular about what meetings get on their calendar, what tasks they say yes to, because you have to be discerning. You cannot be everywhere at once. And to do that, you have to be able to see the value of your time, that your time is valuable. You don't need to do it all. You don't need to be it all. And some of you, you're shifting the self-concept that tells you that you need to. Because in the latter portion of this retrograde, from March 27th to April 12th, Venus will retrograde in Pisces, which for most of you will be your 5th house. And this is around creative expression, things that we do for fun. So it's like the more that you're reclaiming your time around the things that you really don't want to do, the things that you're doing out of obligation or service, not even serving with like a happy heart, happy to be of service, because you're so bitter, because you are not giving yourself what you need and desire. That is an emphasis with the 6th house energy. And with 5th house, it's because you have things that you want to do. Maybe you're bitter and resentful because it's like, I have not played my guitar in months. I have not written a sonnet in years. I have not played The Sims in years. Like 5th house governs our leisure and our fun. And this too is a worthwhile pursuit. Your life is just not the sum of your productivity and your efficiency. It's okay for you to do things just because it is fun. It's okay for you to prioritize tasks just because they bring you happiness. And honestly, I see some of you have a certain creative endeavor or a hobby that's transcendent in some regard, with Venus aligning with Neptune in this house. It takes you to a different planet. It transports you into a different reality when you're playing music, when you're playing The Sims, what have you. Some of you may hear from a romantic beau from the past, and 5th house is not so serious. 5th house is people that you had crushes on and situationships and people who you went on a couple dates with and it fizzled out. Like, those are the people that could be spinning the block. Like, your boyfriend from high school could be talking about a second chance and you're like, that was years ago. Like, what are you talking about, second chance? You could hear from some random people from the past who maybe have a skewed perception of how things went. You could have the skewed perception, or they do. Like if it's a high school boyfriend or whoever it is, where they're like, you were my one true love and we had this really beautiful relationship, and you're like, do you have amnesia? Like, do you not remember what I remember? Like, you could be dealing with people who are very delusional about it. Or you're like, that's not really how it transpired. Like, that's not really how the cookie crumbled. But you also could be holding on to this projection of someone that may not be true to reality. Maybe there was someone you went on a couple dates with and things fizzled out, and because of distance and because you didn't know them that well, you're able to dress up the information that you did know, and they live as a presence in your life, even though you have not seen them in years. They feel real to you. Like, it's almost like you've concocted and conjured this person around, we're going to come back around and they're on their journey and I'm on mine, which I'm not saying that that's not the case, but you may find with Venus retrograde on Neptune, you may be reviewing how much of that is fantasy. Or again, Neptune can be very spiritual, so maybe there is a legitimate, spiritual connection here, but what's the point if it's keeping you stuck? Again, you can transmute that into art and artistry. I feel like a lot of you are doing that, but sometimes it's like our own hobby to yearn for this person and romanticize this person and listen to readings for this person, even though they're not within our physical reality. And you came here to be a human. We didn't just come here to be spiritual soul beings and connect in the ethers. That's part of it. That's part of it. But some of you could just see that you've built someone up to be something that they are not by essentially imagining them to be something more ethereal than they truly are, or there is a legitimate spiritual bond there, but it is keeping you stuck. It's ensnaring you. It's making you feel that this connection is what gives your life a sense of meaning, or that this person is the sole source of your own artistic and creative inspiration, which is not the case. They're simply a catalyst for it. You are the conduit, right? You are the creator. So it's also not giving these people too much credit for their role in eliciting that artistry and that beauty out of you. And I would just review if there was like a certain situationship or like a flirting situation where they're like from afar, right? You guys see each other's lives in photos. You guys are mutuals on social media or something like this, but it's not going anywhere and you're putting a lot of energy towards it. Venus retrograde could be like, how can I create an ending to this so I stop feeling like this is a book that's waiting to be closed? Because sometimes that's what these open-ended connections can do, is they can make us feel like there's this aspect of our life that's unfinished. And so we're less likely to start our new chapter or start our new book because there still feels to be a loose ends from situationships from the past, relationships that never fully got off the ground. But this is a Venus retrograde in Pisces. If it was meant to be, it would be. If it was meant to be, it would be. And so I would just review where entertaining these sort of dynamics may be keeping you a bit stuck. If you are a Libra ascendant, or Venus retrograde will impact your 7th and 6th houses, this reading is for you. And I want to let you know, if you are a Libra ascendant, this transit is going to be even more impactful for you as you are ruled by Venus. Makes sense. That's why you guys are so beautiful and so charismatic. You're ruled by the planet of love and beauty and charm and sweetness and all things nice. But Venus retrograde is not always so nice. I want to let you know that. And your ruler, actually, fun fact, is the rarest planet to go retrograde. So at least you don't have to deal with as much frequent ugliness. Because, I have to be forthright. The beginning of this retrograde, your ruling planet will be in its sign of detriment, retrograde in an angular house. Like, it just could feel a little icky. And sometimes that just shows up around life feels less pleasant and less beautiful. Your connections could feel less harmonious. There could be more fights. There could be more arguments. Things may not feel the way that you like it, which is balanced and harmonious and collaborative and cooperative. You know, your partner could be behaving a little selfishly. You could be a little selfish within dynamics. And I think this is truly for the purpose of creating more balance. Like any sort of connection, there's a balance between you and your partner. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, it is giving the energy around, what about me? You know, if you've overextended yourself or over-sacrificed yourself, it's natural to bring up, what about me, right? What about my needs? What about what it is that I need in order to thrive or be the best partner for you? Maybe some of you, your partner has been dealing with something chaotic or something stressful, or they have a lot happening in their world, and you've been trying to be a supportive partner, but there's an energy around feeling a little burnt out from it, around pouring into a situation and feeling like you're not receiving in return. And so some of you could be really looking at your dynamic and being like, where's the me in this? Where's the appreciation for the person that I am in this? Where is the acknowledging the authentic person that I am in this? Because some of you could just not be feeling seen within your relationship at this time. Like your partner could try to do something sweet for you, but they get you the wrong kind of flowers than you like. Or they buy you a donut, but it's the kind of donut that you're allergic to. Like stuff like that, where it's like, maybe they're trying to see you, but it's like, do you see me? Do you see my preferences? Do you see what I like? And that could be frustrating because a lot of you are Libra placements. So you really make an effort to see the person that you're with. And you might be feeling a little bitter at this time around, I don't feel seen. I feel like I'm seeing you and I don't feel seen. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, some of you could be bringing up at this time what it is that you need within this partnership. Every connection is the balance of self and other. So you could be looking at your side of the scale and being like, I need more playfulness, I need more excitement, I need whatever it is. And I think a lot of you are willing to temporarily disrupt the harmony in order to advocate for that. And some of you could have arguments from the past come back around. And it's important to know that what it is that we're fighting about is often not what we're fighting about. Like within marriage, within relationship, sometimes we're fighting about the dishes, but what we're actually mad at is feeling unvalued and unappreciated. And you might even find that there's different issues within your relationship, but it all comes back to the same core themes, right? Around, you might pick a fight about the dishes, you might pick a fight around the donut or whatever it is, but it all comes down to something. And again, that's going to differ for each of you, but it could come down to, I feel like you don't see me. And the donut reflects that to me, the dishes reflect that to me. I don't feel like you see me. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, I deserve to be seen. I deserve to have my voice heard within relationships. I deserve to advocate for myself. If I don't fight for myself within this relationship, no one else will. So yes, with Venus retrograde, there could be old fights or old flare-ups of existing problems come back around, and hopefully for the intention of completing them once and for all. There is something around completing a cycle for you around this time. We are in eclipses, and we actually have the final eclipse in your axis. The eclipses prior to this point have been in Aries and Libra. The nodes have already shifted to Pisces and Virgo, but this final Aries eclipse at the end of March does land in your 7th house. So it's wrapping up a lot of chaos or drama that's been showing up within self and others. And when we talk about eclipses, we talk about karma. And even with Venus, your ruling planet direct on the Libra full moon, there's this energy around really wanting to move forward, around we are wasting time bickering about things that are not the real issue. Like, how can we move forward? And if there are certain issues that come up time and time again, maybe there's been a tendency around brushing things under the rug. And with Aries energy, don't fear getting a little uncouth with it, okay? You don't have to be polite all the time. You don't have to have a nice smile on your face. The right relationship for you should be able to acknowledge you as a person and not just an extension of them. Like, I feel like for some of you, you could be feeling like, I'm a planet in your solar system. Like, you like it when I'm revolving around you, but when I have certain issues that you need to revolve around, it's much different. Like, some of you could be reviewing the rules of the dynamic itself. Now, on the love topic, because that's what 7th house is all about, is our connection with others. If you are single, Venus retrograde could be a time that your exes from the past do spin the block with you. And 7th house is long-term relationships, ex-spouses, ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, what have you. And be mindful, okay? Because I feel with Venus retrograde in Aries, some people could be spinning the block because they want to fight with you again. Or you also most likely have Chiron in this house as well. So maybe even there's certain dynamics of this person being drawn to you or you being drawn to this person that's really just a certain wound from childhood that's being triggered within this dynamic. And that's why you're so deeply craving this person's validation and acceptance of you. You feel like if this person validates you and accepts you, then you could accept and validate yourself. And that can also be the case for someone else. You could be like, why does this person keep coming back around? They're like a fly buzzing around me. Like, you are an ex for a reason. And there could be something that they feel like they can only get from you. And again, it's not your responsibility to give that person closure. It's something that they need to find for themselves. But it's knowing that sometimes we return to the source of the pain, thinking that's where healing awaits. Or we return to where we were triggered, thinking that's where we can heal. And that's not the case. Be mindful of that on your end. Be mindful of that on other people's end. Because people could also spin the block with you because they want an outlet of their frustration and resentment. They want to make you the villain. Some of you, they might not even be trying for a second chance with you. You could just hear that they're talking badly about you or mad at something. You know, it's not your responsibility how someone behaves after they've been rejected. Like, I think a lot of you are really just recognizing that is quite literally not your problem. Ultimately, you are responsible for yourself. So even if you're not directly interacting with this person, you could hear about this person. This person could be trying to make you jealous. And you're like, you're fighting with yourself. I do not care. And for some of you, you do care. Okay, for some of you, you do care. For some of you, when I said you might have an ex come back at this time, your heart might have lifted. You might have felt excited by that because you've been waiting for this person to come back. I would exercise caution at this time. There's a lot of karmic completion happening at this time. And sometimes when someone wants a second chance, it's not about us giving in again and giving this person a second or third chance. Sometimes we complete the karma because this is the time that we say no. This is the time that we deny access. This is the time that we finally choose ourselves. I see some of you are choosing yourself beyond even being the side character in someone else's movie. I'm seeing, like, because with the Aries energy, it could be certain individuals who like you, certainly, but really like how you make them look or how you make them feel about themselves. And you are recognizing, I deserve to be the protagonist in my own movie. I don't need to bend and mold myself to fit into your movie, to be your sidekick, to stroke your ego. No, I have a bigger purpose than that. I have a bigger reason to be here than that. Because that's sometimes why people come back around. They want validation, right? And maybe you closing out the cycle is not playing that game with somebody or not giving them that, or just showing yourself how much you respect yourself, that you're not even allowing this person to disrupt your peace. Because this could show up around, yes, someone showing up under your window with the boombox, like asking for a second chance. You know, Mercury retrograde will also be in the 7th house. So you absolutely could hear from somebody from your past. They could want a second chance, but it could also be something small, adding you on social media, asking mutual friends what you've been up to. Like, people from your past could be wanting to make their presence known. And it would be my encouragement not to get hung up on them and what it is that they're doing, but really staying focused on your own path. And if this person comes back around, if you even dream of this person, run into this person, reflect on what this person taught you about yourself and what it is that you want in relationships and what it is that you're really worthy of within relationships. Because when you settle for breadcrumbs, you get breadcrumbs, right? And some of you had to walk away from a situation because you're like, I'm worthy than more than just breadcrumbs. I deserve an entire loaf of bread. And that's what I'm going to go find. And acknowledge and be grateful for all of the people of your past who led you to this present version of self. Like, you are the true love of your life. You are your true soulmate. It's not to say that you won't have a life partner, you won't have a marriage, you won't have many amazing relationships within your life. But at the end of the day, you are the love of your life. And you will put up with what it is that you feel that you deserve. you're like stuck in a situation, trapped in a situation that you know deep down, I do not deserve to be treated this way, Venus retrograde could be you reflecting on that. And some of you could be really contemplating if this is the relationship you want to be in, if it's really the behavior you want to put up with. And maybe even think about your past, being grateful for all of the lessons that you learned. Even if people mistreated you, it's not to say that you need to be all love and light about it, but really acknowledging, I would not have become the person that I am today, and maybe even in the relationship that I have today, had I not had to deal with your inconsistency or you're this or you're that. Like, that experience made me dig deep and tap into my true value and claw myself towards my own self-respect and building a life that was true to me. And you know, some of you could be plotting and planning to exit from a relationship if you're finding that this is not what you deserve. This is not how you want to be loved. And if it's an existing partnership, I definitely think you're going to get a lot of intel on it in March and April 2025. Typically with Venus retrograde, I would say plan and plot. I would also say this can be a very helpful time for healing from the past. If you're single and you're calling in partnership and you're like, why do I keep dating the same person with different faces, but same patterns and tendencies? Venus retrograde is a time to put an end to the past, release the past, shed the past, and not just shed the people, shed the version of yourself that was attached to those people. Again, sometimes we want people to come back around or to choose us because of what that says to us about us. And in order to really release that, we need to release finding our sense of worthiness attached to how we are perceived by that person. So it's not just releasing that person, it's also around releasing the version of yourself that needed that person's approval or validation. Even your inner child, which is like so desperate for nourishment that in some warped way you feel like this dynamic can only give you. It's deeper than just the person. It's what it brings up within us, within our inner child, within our self-concept. But Venus retrograde is a time to really make peace with the past. Again, it's not that everything went favorably. It's not that everybody that you dated was an angel. But if you can alchemize these experiences and hone in on what they taught you, that's the positive part. That's the beauty. That's the alchemy there. And that sets you up energetically in a space to be open to new love. Because if we can shift our vibration around our romantic past from a space of, bitterness and resentment and things didn't go my way, to a space of gratitude around they weren't perfect, but I learned this and I learned that, we are essentially more energetically attuned to what we want rather than what we don't want. When we hone in on they were the worst, it was the worst, we're honed in on those characteristics and we will be a vibrational match for more of that or continuing on the patterns. That's why I always say to my clients when they're trying to sell a home, hone into what you like about the home. When you focus on why you're so happy to be selling your home around, oh, this door squeaks and this is the worst. When people tour your home, energetically, that's what they'll be tapped into as well. So if you are honed in on how your relationships went wrong or even the insecurities that you have because of past connections, energetically, vibrationally, that's what you're bringing into future dynamics. So Venus retrograde is around, let me put an end to my past and let me not give people from my past an inch more of my energy. Not my thought space, not my heart, not my regret, not my guilt, not my insecurity, none of it. None of it. They don't deserve any of it. No more ink in my journal. No more residence in my head. No more thought. That's the ultimate revenge, is pulling your energy all together. Just being like, they're not worth an inch. I've given them too much and I don't need to live in regret. I'm just going to take it as a lesson learned. I feel like some of you are in your thank you next era. And keep it moving, keep it pushing, and do not allow them to encroach on this new chapter of your life. And sometimes when you decide to sever the past, that's when people come back around, right? It's like the universe seeing, are you going to choose the old toxic cycles that you've been ensnared in, or are you going to move towards the new experiences and people that are so wanting you to meet them? Or are you going to choose the old, the familiar hell that we're used to? We know deep down we don't deserve to be treated this way, or there's a love that's bigger for us out there than this. But again, it's familiar. And with Venus retrograde, you're going to have to stand on business, okay? If there's certain dynamics from the past that you do not want to entertain, to really make that decision to sever it. And if you want to hear from somebody and you don't, this is protection. Okay, this is protection. Please do not read into this around, if only I was more desirable or more this, then people from my past would come back around. That says nothing about you. That says nothing about you. And sometimes your spirit guides, your angels, your team is blocking this person from you because it's like a child who doesn't know that they can't touch the stove, that it's going to hurt. Like sometimes what we call for, like, I want this person, the universe is like, it's gonna only bring more pain and confusion. Like, trust me, we're blocking this person for you for a reason. And again, focus now around taking really good care of yourself. Latter part of Venus retrograde, Venus will dip into your 6th house. And this represents your day-to-day routine. So some of you could be jumping back into a workout routine. Whenever you feel tempted to hit somebody else from the past or to bicker with your partner, pick a fight, instead hit the gym, right? Reconnect with a fitness routine. Or some of you could be rethinking your diet. You know, Venus retrograde sometimes makes us more apt to crave sweets. So definitely be cautious of that, okay? But again, align yourself with things that feel good, things that are good for you. Do not align with toxicity any longer. And that could be just even mentally or just getting lost in this person's chaos or drama. Align with things that are genuinely good for you physically. Because relationships are actually one of the biggest contributors to our health. Truly. Being ensnared in toxic dynamics is hell on the body. It is erosive on our physicality. That stress will eat your body alive. I am not kidding. So whether it's a current dynamic that's bringing you a lot of stress or a past dynamic of somebody who you're super drawn to, but you recognize that they're not good for you, recognize the harm that it inflicts on your physicality. Even if they don't hurt you, which again, if anybody ever hurts you, please do whatever possible. I know it's really challenging, but please take the steps possible to get out of that. You do not deserve to be treated that way. That is unacceptable for anyone to treat you that way. But even if they don't lay a hand on you, the mental torture, the stress on your physical body, it will age you, it will destroy you from the inside out, it will impact your productivity, and you have a mission and a calling that's bigger than just being this person's sidekick, is what I want to say here. And maybe that's a revelation because a lot of you are Libra Risings. Like a lot of you really do love and connection and partnership, and that's a beautiful thing, and you will have that. But you have to choose yourself. In order to get into a truly balanced connection, you have to choose yourself. And with Venus retrograde in the 6th house, some of you could be reviewing certain work projects. There could be contract themes with Venus retrograde in the 7th house, then going in the 6th house, even employment contract. Some of you could have recently hired someone and you're having to review that or rework that in some regard. This Venus retrograde 2025 message is for you if you are a Virgo ascendant, or Venus retrograde will impact your 8th and 7th houses. For you, the journey begins in the intense cave that is the 8th house. Let's get into it. So firstly, I want to say if you are married, if you have a joint business partnership, Venus retrograde could be you reviewing the terms of those agreements and really contemplating beyond if it's fair, because a lot of times life isn't fair, right? We kind of have to make peace with that. But I think some of you are looking at it and just ensuring that it's an honest reflection of you or representation of you with Venus retrograde in the 8th house. Some of you could even get offers. Some of you might even be represented by somebody else. You could have an agent or a manager, someone else who handles your financial affairs, and you could be reviewing it around, is this a reflection of who it is that I am? As the authentic soul that I am? Is there enough me in this? And maybe is this partnership benefiting me, right? Am I protected if you're married or about to be so? This could be a time that you're reviewing prenuptial agreements, things like this, and really questioning, am I taken care of within this? Does this partnership honor me? Within this business partnership, is this true to what I bring to the table? Like some of you are really having to assert and prioritize self in how it is that you merge and fuse with others. Some of you could be dealing with certain tax themes at this time, or certain debt. You thought that you paid off, it comes back around. There could be an accountant or something who needs more information from you, or there's delays in getting your taxes filed on a boring level. That could be Venus retrograde in the 8th house. Some of you are also reviewing where you need to put certain exes to bed. You know, put a fork in it, it's done. Let the past be the past. Some of you are having to let something go. You're having to purify yourself by burning away these past dynamics. Because genuinely, some of you are holding out hope for someone who is not there any longer. And again, my heart is with you if you are processing grief or something like this that feels unresolved that you're moving through. But for some of you, you're grieving someone who's very much alive. And maybe you're even keeping their memory alive within your world, or their presence alive within their world, even if they are not actually in your world. And some of you could be really wanting to release the past, like really wanting to put an end to things, whether it's certain cycles that you've been ensnared with. Maybe someone has been trying to play games with you, mind games with you. And it's just this energy where you're removing yourself from the equation. Maybe you've been ensnared in some sort of toxic dance with someone, and you're just like, hey, check this out. I'm gone. I'm gone. I don't want to fight with you any longer. It takes too much out of me. Some of you could be in like a cat and mouse game. And again, it feels toxic. Like for a lot of you, you've been in a certain toxic dance with somebody where their presence in your life could have been inconsistent, or even if they're not in your life, they still run rampant over your psyche because they're such a presence in your life, even if they're not physically there. Because Venus aligns with Neptune in your 7th house. So this is where we project and we idealize and we fantasize. So some of you are building someone up to be something they are not. You're building them up to have power that they do not have. Like the power to dictate whether or not you are worthy as an individual, or whether or not you are good enough as an individual or desirable enough as an individual. That's just a person. They don't have the power to dictate that to you. And that's where we get into the toxic part, because Neptune can be the high, right? That's what Neptune governs. So there could be a certain person that when you reconnect with them, when they spin the block or what have you, it feels like a high, like no other. But you know what comes after the high is the crash. You know, you could be on a roller coaster with someone in your life, some sort of on-off dance of some sort. And the euphoria of coming back together is met with simply the crashing of that excitement. For some of you, I feel like you're genuinely hooked on somebody. And it could be someone from your past. Maybe you're trying to let go. You want off the roller coaster. You recognize, I'm not moving forward in my life. I'm just on your highs and lows, your ups and downs. Get me off the ride. I'm not having fun anymore. It's not fun anymore. I feel like for some of you, you're like, this used to be thrilling and exciting and maybe even like sexy, but I'm not having fun anymore. This is erosive to me. This is taking a toll on me. Part of me feels like I'm dying within this dynamic, and part of you is. And I don't say that in a morbid way. I think you're just killing off the version of you that was dependent on this person's approval or validation for you to feel worthy. You are putting that person to rest. It's beyond just putting the dynamic to rest. It's putting the wounded side of yourself that found your validation by being on this roller coaster with this person. It's beyond just walking away from this dynamic. It's also walking away from the version of yourself who was dependent on this person, highs and lows. And sometimes that's what keeps us in cycles, is that we don't want to walk away. Maybe because we love the person, right? We always forgive them and accept them, even when they do bad things, with Venus retrograde on Neptune. We'll talk about that in a moment. But also because we don't want to grieve that side of ourselves. We mourn that side of ourselves. We don't want to lose that side of ourselves, the person that met the person that we're entangled with, right? And we feel like walking away from them is walking away from that prior self. But I feel like with Venus retrograde, especially starting in your 8th house, you are grieving. You know, for some of you, this could be someone literal, you know, even outside of romantic indication. Some of you could just be grieving someone who has passed on. Some of you could be grieving a person, right? Going through a breakup of some sort. And some of you could be grieving a version of yourself that was entangled in this dynamic. And for some of you, this dance, it's not that this person is all right, sinister, and nefarious. For some people, they are, okay? They're manipulative. They want you hooked on them because then they can keep you stuck and control you. That's only for a couple people. But for some, you might have someone from your past where they are dealing with substance issues, or they are not good at reality. They have a hard time being very dialed in with their living situation or with their responsibilities. And maybe you always save this person, or you give this person access because you feel bad. You can't help but forgive this person when they mistreat you because they're such a mess within their lives as well. And again, that doesn't even need to necessarily be romantic dynamics. But with Venus retrograde and the eclipses also occurring at this time, a lot of you will have an eclipse in your first house. You are releasing an outdated version of how you view yourself and your self-concept. And I think a lot of you are releasing an identity of being the martyr, of being the savior, of being the one who's always there if someone from your past needs a couch to stay on, right? Or if somebody needs someone, or if your ex needs someone to fix them or save them. Like for some of you, you're just like, not me. I can feel sad for you. I can send you love from afar, but I also don't need to be the one responsible for the messes that you've made and cleaning up the messes that you've made. And for some of you, that might even be alive within a current dynamic, because if you're married, there could be a review of your finances, what your money is going to, what you want your money to go to, reviewing investments. Some of you could even be fighting about money. And with Venus retrograde in the 7th house, dealing with old problems from the past at this time, and Neptune's here. So it's a little bit like a smokescreen. So there might be dynamics of you're not fighting about the heart of the matter. You're fighting about dishes, but it's not about dishes. It's about something deeper. And so the encouragement is, how can we solve this something deeper to free ourselves from this situation? I also feel some of you have kept yourself in illusion. You've built someone up, potentially from your past, to be someone that they are not. For some of you, you're waiting for this knight in shining armor to swoop in and save the day and rescue you from your own life. But you are the hero of your own story. You can save yourself. And I just feel like some of you are keeping yourself stuck by waiting on someone else to come save you. And for some of you, you are envisioning your ex or someone from the past to be the person who's going to rush in to save you. That your life is going to start as soon as this person comes back, and you guys are going to ride off into the sunset, right, into the carriage, and have this happily ever after together, right? And some of you have had some hard relationship things. You know, you have Saturn most likely in the 7th house. So it's interesting that Venus both impacts Neptune and Saturn throughout its retrograde journey in your 7th house, because you're having to get realistic about any sort of fantasy that you've projected on your partners. If it's current partners, this fantasy around they're going to change, they're going to be better, they're going to magically get more ambition one day or get their stuff together one day, right? Or someone from the past, they're going to come back and then I'll be able to have my happily ever after, or we're going to build this magical reality together. It's not to say that you can't, but Neptune energy is not reality, and Saturn energy is asking you to be realistic. People can future fake. They could promise you this grandiose future. Do they have the actions to back it up? If anybody from the past comes back, do not listen to the flowery, poetic words that they're giving you. Pay attention to their actions. That'll be the receipts that you need to see if you should let these people back into your orbit, back into your space, back into your heart at that. Because some of you might entertain an ex from the past and realize they're not all that you cracked them up to be within your mind. With distance, we can idealize, we can romanticize, we can make somebody's issues and problems fade into the background and their best qualities come to the forefront. And then add in a couple of other qualities that we made up. And some of you are going to go back into a dynamic just to feel a little let down, feel a little disappointed, or just to recognize after the adrenaline wears off and the high fades, oh, you're still the person you were, right? You're still who it is that you are. People are who they are. People can change, but they have to want to change. And sometimes people only change when you're not there to rescue them or save them from themselves. Again, some of you want to be saved. Some of you are the ones who always save. We can't do people's push-ups for them. And some of you are recognizing that with Venus retrograde, maybe even breaking a cycle because of that recognition. If you are a Leo rising, or Venus retrograde will impact your 9th and 8th houses this March and April 2025, this message is for you. So firstly, with Venus starting its retrograde journey in Aries, for most of you, your 9th house, there may be themes around reviewing your belief systems. Some of you could have lost touch with a certain religion, with a certain spiritual practice that supports your overall worldview. That with Venus retrograde, you could be getting back into witchcraft. If you've lost touch with that, you could get back into going to church, especially if it's something that you value. For others of you, you could be really reworking how certain religions have made you feel about yourself, ways that it may have positive or negatively impacted your self-concept, or even just the raw messiness of being a human being. Like maybe there's certain ideals that were programmed into you that you were unlearning, certain ethics that you were told was important for you to uphold, that now you're reviewing around what is it that I value. And with the energy of Venus retrograde in the 9th house, you could even be questioning, does religion have value for me within my world? Does spirituality have value for me within my world? Is this something that I value enough to want to prioritize? And again, if you engaged with certain religious practices or within certain entities that negatively contributed to your overall sense of self, made you feel like you had to fake the funk or be something that you're not. With Venus retrograde, it could be getting to know who it is that you are outside of what you were told you needed to be by religious figures or by religion altogether. 9th house also deals with higher learning, school, education. So if some of you are in college with Venus retrograde, you could be reviewing your coursework at this time, even contemplating if you want to change your major. Some of you could be questioning if you want to go to college. That's something that you value for your pathway forward. Again, what's been programmed into me versus what do I value? Because I would say having Aries in the 9th house, it's important for you to trailblaze your own path, to build your own worldview. And I feel that some of you, whether it's from religious factors, whether it's from cultural factors, whether it's from educational factors, I feel like some of you might have been programmed certain ways to see the world that with Venus retrograde, you were like, that does not align for me. Aries is the very authentic, raw spark of who it is that we are. So you could be unlearning who it is that you felt like you had to be or what it is that you felt like you had to believe. There could be even ways that you engage spiritually that you find that doesn't align for me. Like maybe you are a Christian, but you like astrology, right? And with Venus retrograde, it's like, no, I see value in both of these things. I don't need to be all one thing or all the other. I just need to be true to myself. You have the right to live your life, Leo, based on what aligns for you, and even choosing the worldview, choosing the spirituality that works for you. Like at the end of the day, outside of rules and ethics and the right way to live and the wrong way to live, it's just about figuring out the way that you want to live. Maybe dulling out the noise around what other people have communicated to you is around what has been told to you is meaningful in order to carve your own meaning out of life. Some of you may be traveling at this time. Some of you might be thinking about traveling abroad. You know, it would not be my encouragement to make any financial decisions to travel abroad. It would not be my encouragement to travel during this time in general. Mercury retrograde will also be located here at the same time. But what I will say is that some of you could be kind of questioning this grass is greener mentality around if you feel this desire that you want to pack up all your belongings, you want to move, you want to just start over. Again, it's not saying that you cannot do that, but Venus retrograde may make you question, am I running towards something, this new life that I want to build, or am I running away from something? Because wherever it is that you go, there you are. And sometimes when we feel that call to just want to drop everything and start over, it's like, who's to say if that will be favorable or unfavorable? Every decision in life are just decisions in life. It's not to say that if you jump into living in a different country or live nomadically for a year that all of your problems will be solved. Again, you need to do what's right for you. I'm not actively discouraging you from this, but I am saying check your motivations. Like really see why you want to go on these particular experiences. Maybe some of you are even questioning if you want to get your master's degree, if you want to go back to school for your PhD. Some of you could be coming back to an educational environment in some regard. Maybe you are a professor, you're coming back to an educational environment that you were in prior. Some of you could even be rethinking a decision to get a certain certification or something like this. I do see a lot of you are really spiritually seeking at this time. You know, you could go into this period being like, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of life? And I will tell you, my friend, one Venus retrograde is not going to solve that for us. But even the fact that you're asking that question is a sign that you're on the right direction, that you're looking for meaning. And we do ourselves such a disservice when we look for one central purpose within our life. Our purpose is in a lot of smaller ways. It's in the person you complimented when you got your coffee this morning. It's the door that you held open. It's the encouragement that you give to your colleagues. Like, our purpose is not this one overarching thing, and we can miss out on all of the beauty within the small moments of life as we're searching for this bigger meaning of it all. There's meaning in a lot of little things. And I feel that some of you could feel disconnected from your spiritual practices at this time. Again, Venus retrograde is an invitation to get back into them, particularly if it's some from the past that you've lost touch with. And I feel that this is going to help reroute your compass, right? To feel like you're moving forward and moving towards something, not just running away from what you don't want, but running towards what it is that you do want and feeling supported by your own ethics, the meaning that you find within this world, a spiritual belief system that genuinely aligns for you. And I see that some of you, you know, with Venus then entering Pisces, which for a lot of you is your 8th house, there could be elements around diving into the occult, right? Diving into hidden mysteries and topics. Some of you, if you're married, there could be an element of reviewing your joint finances in some regard. Random message, but some of you could get a tax return because Venus retrograde is around taxes that you put towards traveling or new experiences with Venus in the 9th house. But some of you could be looking at your budget with your spouse. Do we have the money to travel? Do we have the money for me to go back to school? Or something like this could be a focus here. And some of you may be dealing with elements of grief. You know, they say that grief is the price of love in this lifetime. And I just want to say I'm sending you so much love for the grief that you may be moving through. And again, this isn't to say I don't want anyone to panic around, oh my gosh, Haley, Comet, are you saying I'm going to lose someone during this retrograde? No, not necessarily. It also could be you grieving how you thought your life was going to be, grieving who you used to be, right? Grieving not just a particular person in your life, but the version of you that that person brought out. There could be an energy where you are grieving, but I feel with Venus retrograde in Pisces aligned with Neptune, again, this won't resonate for everybody, but I feel like some of you are connecting with someone who has passed on. Like, you could find that your passed on loved ones are giving you lots of signs and signals. They could even be helping you out from the ethers. Like, you might find like manifestations are coming in with a lot more ease. A practitioner that I work with told me once, she's like, you know, your ancestors are typically more invested in you as a person. So of course you can work with the angels and all of that, but a lot of times your loved ones who have crossed over, they're very invested in you. So they're very there for you. Again, energy is not ever created or destroyed. It simply changes forms. And some of you could be finding ways to connect with your loved ones in them having changed forms. Again, that doesn't take away the heartache and the heartbreak of not having them here. But I feel like with Venus retrograde, there could be ways that you're tapping into them. Even like blessings that show up, random money from the past that catches up. Again, a random tax return, like you pray, like, please, I have this bill, and like random money shows up. Like, you might be surprised by the unexpected support that is offered to you from the other side, whether that's in the form of guidance, whether that's in the form of inspiration, whether that's in the form around feeling comforted and supported by the other side. If you are a Cancer ascendant, or Venus retrograde will transit through your 10th and 9th houses, this message is for you. So firstly, what I want to say, there could be some conflict at work. There could be some disagreements with bosses, maybe even certain issues that you thought you put to bed around an authority figure, a boss, that rears its ugly head once more during this Venus retrograde. Maybe even some of you, there's been certain people that you work for, because 10th house is the house of bosses. Some of you are self-employed. So even like some of the people that you serve could be a little selfish, or again, in this energy around take. Again, I always say this on my channel, but givers need to have limits because takers have none. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, like if you feel like your clients are kind of bossing you around, or again, your boss is bossing you around, there could be an energy around really wanting to review the terms of how you work with these particular people. Because when we work for or with individuals who are very pushy, very bossy, very me, we sometimes put ourselves in the space around feeling like we need to bend to their every whim and fancy. And that communicates to ourselves subconsciously that my value is only around getting approval and validation from my boss or from my career in some regard. And again, we have to be so mindful what we affirm, because we also affirm that the inverse is true. So if you affirm that my work has value, if my clients love every part of it in the ways that I work, if my work has value, if my boss is pleased with the way that I worked overtime or what have you, that also affirms that I am not valuable if I don't bend over backwards, if I don't succumb to my clients' every whim or fancy. Be mindful what you affirm. And again, it's not saying you have to be mean or cruel. I just feel like there could be an opportunity, because again, we're all in life school. And life school might be testing you around, okay, are you going to set that boundary now? Are you going to allow this person to miss a session with you? Or are you going to allow your boss to bully you into doing A, B, and C? Because every experience, especially if it's repeating, if you've been in a cycle where you've been frustrated or this issue keeps coming back around, it's like it will repeat until we graduate. And for some of you, it could be graduating from a certain lesson around, I've crafted so many offerings from the people who have complained that I wasn't doing enough and it didn't feel good. I didn't feel valued. Or I have sacrificed what I needed in order to make my boss pleased so many times and I didn't feel good. I didn't feel valued. You have value. Your work has value. And with Venus retrograde in Aries, I'm just seeing that some of you are allowing yourself to be part of the equation, where what it is that you create and produce to a public level, it's not just about the impact that you have. Of course, that's a big part of it. But particularly if you have your own business, you are the heartbeat of that. You are the firing force of that. And if you work for someone else, your efforts, your labor, fire up a lot of that as well. Like, understand your worth. So many people will be all too ready to undervalue you if you undervalue yourself. And some of you with Venus retrograde, you're really questioning, do I feel valued here? Like within my career, within my reputation even. You know, some of you could be dealing with a certain energy around being a little competitive, maybe looking at other people's career or other people's reputation and feeling less than. Really look at how much you value yourself based on outer prestige or accomplishments. Because with Venus retrograde, there's an energy around getting back to the basics. Why did I choose this particular career field? Why did I start this business? Don't get caught up in a race around trying to win just to prove to yourself that you are successful, or looking left and looking right at what other people are doing and comparing yourself. It's human nature to compare. But with Venus retrograde in Aries, remember who you're doing this for. And it's not to flex on your competitors, most likely, right? Some of you might be questioning, am I in the right field? Like, you could even be thinking about your inner child and like, would they be stoked around what it is that I do, right? Do I feel like I'm investing too much energy and not receiving? Because some of you could be rethinking if your value is honored here, if the finances of your position make sense, if the finances of your business make sense. There could be reviews here. Also, if you're in a job search, like Venus retrograde can indicate delays in some regard around career matters. So even if you have a launch, it might take longer than it typically does. Some of you might even have things that either you communicated about your business or rumors that were spread about your business come back around in some regard, because Mercury is also retrograde here. So if you made certain promises at work, or you communicated a certain timeline, you may need to answer for that now. Or if you told your clients you would be bringing something particular to the table, you may need to answer to that now. Like retrograde could be the energy of, consequences, catching up in some regard, or having to review those promises that were made in a public platform. And if there were rumors or something like that swirling, again, with Venus retrograde in Aries, my encouragement would be try not to sink to their level, try not to indulge in unnecessary squabbles in order to rectify your reputation. This is also eclipse season. You likely will have an eclipse in your 10th house at the end of March. And so this would not be the time to get messy, to be petty, okay? Like with Venus retrograde, let things settle. You cannot control the narrative. And with the energy of Aries, you are who you are. And who it is that you are, people will say all sorts of things about you. Let them. Venus retrograde in the 10th house is giving very let them energy. And then Venus will retrograde back into Pisces from March 27th to April 12th, which for most of you will be your 9th house. And this has to deal with belief systems. So some of you could have this moment where you're like, am I in the wrong field? Like, do I need to go back to school? Do I need to get a master's? Some of you could be thinking about potentially an old manuscript or some sort of book that you want to publish. Or again, going back to school. Some of you could be going back to get some sort of certification that's going to help your career moving forward. There could be a lot of thought and review about this, as well as reconnecting to your spiritual practices. Particularly if you work in something spiritual, you've got to live it to teach it. And so if you feel like you've been so lost in the hustle of sharing it and expressing it that you haven't been living it, and again, whether that's spiritual practices, ethics, whatever it is, Venus retrograde in the 9th house is around you, getting back to living it. We teach what we need to learn. And so even if you are an established professional, there's an element of Venus retrograde around getting back to the basics or getting back to your own practice, because that deepens and fortifies how it is that you show up. If you are a Gemini rising, or Venus retrograde will make its way through your 11th and your 10th houses, this message is for you, this reading is for you, and this Venus retrograde story for you is going to be concentrated around friends, hopes and dreams, humanitarian ideals, career, public persona, reputation. Let's get into it. So Venus retrograde begins in Aries, which for most of you is your 11th house. And this will be the case from March 1st to March 27th. So Act 1 of Venus retrograde for you is going to play out a lot within your friendships. A lot of you could hear from a friend from the past. And with the energy of Aries, it could be someone where there is some fiery energy. There are some words exchanged. Mercury, your ruling planet, if you're Gemini rising, will also be retrograde in this territory. So there could have been words that were shared, okay? On your end or on the other person's end. And something about words, it's like a toothpaste tube. It's like once that toothpaste comes out, you can't get it back in. And so there can be an energy around someone trying to spin the block with you, trying to reconnect and reminisce, and you're like, you can't unsay what was said. You can't undo what was done. It could also be vice versa. You want to reconnect with someone, you follow someone from the past on social media, and they're like, listen, there's still hurt feelings, right? I'm still bruised from this situation. Now, for some of you, it's not so dramatic. Genuinely, it's not so dramatic. Maybe you guys just kind of like grew apart because of different life experiences. And this could be a time where you're wanting to reconcile, you're wanting to reminisce. Maybe it's even like childhood friends or people who knew you when you were a very pure, raw version of yourself. And as you reconnect with them, you also reconnect with you, the version of you that was friends with them in that period of your life. And if there was a little bit of a toxic dynamic within that friendship, it's so powerful how with age, a lot of times those dynamics can shift. I mean, sometimes we go back to the dynamic and we're like, you are still the same person. But I've had certain friendships with my life where it was toxic, but we were able to kind of pick up our friendship at a later point in time after we had both healed and grown. We were both in very broken parts of our journey, and that impacted our friendship to one another. We were both ensnared in toxicity within our individual lives, so of course our friendship was going to have that. And sometimes there's an element around, now that I've healed and grown and you've healed and grown, maybe we can reconnect to that pureness of our friendship. And sometimes those friendships that we have when we're young, when we're growing, they can be pure and playful and fun, you know, the energy of Aries. But again, we do a lot of healing and growing in those seasons of our life. So some of you could be either thinking about or actually returning to some of those friendships. Even if it's not so serious, you could just say, hey, how are you? You could catch up with someone from the past in some regard. Some of you, maybe you did not fall out, but there was like a competitive vibe. Like a competitive vibe. Oh, I hate that. Like kind of that frenemy dynamic. And some of you could be really rethinking that. Like some of you could just observe, like, why are you so competitive with me? Like, why can't you be happy for me? Do you value me as a human being, or do you just see me as someone to compete with? Like some of you could be really rethinking friendships that are in your life, especially if there's competitive dynamics, especially if you feel like you can't be yourself around them. With Venus retrograde, it's like you don't value the trueness and the authenticity of who it is that I am. So why am I here? That could be something that some of you are contemplating during this time. And I wouldn't do anything drastic during Venus retrograde, but I would absolutely honor if those are thoughts that come up. There could even be a fight, an argument from the past that you and a friend are hashing out at this time. Again, maybe this fight has taken different forms, maybe different things trigger it, but it comes down to a central theme around, I don't feel respected, or I feel like you're competing with me. Venus retrograde can be a time to put these issues to rest and to bed for good. Now, outside of the friendship dynamic, there's also something around your career as well as your overall hopes and dreams. So 11th house governs hopes and dreams. So there could be an energy with Venus retrograde around reconnecting to visions for the future that you had from the past. If that makes sense. Like what you used to want to be when you were 5, right? How you envisioned your life when you were younger. And again, we get older, we get disillusioned, so on and so forth. It's not to say that you can change your whole life and be an astronaut just because you wanted to when you were 5. But there is a certain pride when we build a life that our younger self would think was cool. Like at the end of the day, it's all about flexing on your younger self, right? And some of you may have wanted to be a musician or something like that from the past. And it's not to say you need to change your entire journey to do that, but maybe you could play music on the weekends. Like your inner child would be stoked to know that you're still playing music, right? And that you haven't given up on yourself and your dreams. Maybe you even lost touch with what you used to want. And career could factor into that because with Venus retrograde in Pisces, which is your 10th house most likely from March 27th to April 12th, this brings up reviews around career. There could be old career projects that you have to handle, old issues with bosses that you're having to handle in some regard, elements of your reputation you're having to review at this time coming up. But I just feel a lot of you are reflecting around the life that you are building. And with Venus retrograde, it's not about literally going backwards, but we do review. We review where we've been in order to course correct where we're going. So that's where the inner child work is helpful. That's where you ask yourself what you wanted to be when you're 5, how you envisioned your life when you were 5. It's not about changing your life to that because a lot of times it's a little unrealistic, but it's just ensuring that the core authenticity of who it is that you are is still reflected within your journey. Because if you feel like you're living a life that doesn't even feel like your own, you're in friendships where you feel like your authenticity of who it is that you are isn't even seen and acknowledged, Venus retrograde could be you reviewing that and really questioning, what shifts can I make in order to make my life feel more like me? In order to build a career that I really value, in order to build a life that I really value. And last, but most certainly not least, this reading is for you if you are a Taurus rising, Taurus ascendant, or Venus retrograde will transit through your 12th house and your 11th house. I want to start firstly by saying if you are a Taurus rising, you are ruled by Venus. So Venus retrograde is more noteworthy for you because it is your ruling planet. And I want to let you know that the beginning portion of this transit may not be so comfortable. Firstly, your ruling planet for a lot of you, Venus, will be transiting a sign where it's like, ugh, hate it here. Venus does not like being in Aries. Adding to that, it's also in your 12th house. And so you could be feeling like a toe. And what I mean by that, do you ever have those days where you just feel like a toe? You just don't feel cute. You just feel lame and sometimes ugly, and you don't feel charming and you don't feel magnetic. I say this not to like scare you about this transit, but just to validate you. Because I know when I went through Venus retrograde in Leo, August of 2023, I mean, I looked like a toe. I felt like a toe. Maybe I didn't look like a toe, but I felt like a toe. And I think a gift of feeling like a toe is that it does kind of give the illusion. It's not literal that your beauty evaporates and that your charm evaporates, the love from others evaporates. It's not that those things literally evaporate. It's that we don't see it in the same way. And sometimes this could be powerful because we really learn to validate ourselves from within. Sometimes we don't feel like we're receiving as much romantic attention as we typically do. We don't feel as beautiful as we typically feel. We don't feel as charming as we typically do. We don't feel as validated as we typically do. And in those circumstances, we are forced to kind of find that from within. And that's what I want to encourage you to do this March. As Venus is retrograde in your 12th house, you could find that you're a little bit in your hermit era. You're feeling a little bit more isolated. Not that this is what your life is now, but it's just like a season. So sometimes just acknowledging this is a season of my life and that's all. And there's valuable gems that you can find in this hermit era, in this moment of isolation. Like some of you could be really trusting your intuition. You have really strong gut instincts. Some of you could be connecting to the ways in which that helps you sharpen that muscle within. Some of you could have really fascinating dreams at this time. You could be dreaming about people from your past with Venus retrograde in the 12th house, maybe even fighting with people from your past with Venus retrograde in the 12th house. Again, every experience that we have goes somewhere. And I mention that because 12th house can be the skeletons in our closet, things that we push into the darkness of our mind because we don't want to deal with it. Every emotion goes somewhere. So some of you could have surprising unresolved grief and heartache and emotions that you never fully dealt with, that you're being asked to deal with now in a very direct way with the energy of Aries. I'm feeling for a lot of you like unresolved rage, or rage you did not allow yourself to feel. Some of you could really benefit from allowing yourself to scream, allowing yourself to cry, scream into a pillow, take a kickboxing class, like allow your healing journey to be raw and messy. Because a lot of you are Taurus rising. So you like things pretty, right? You like to keep it chill. But there's an energy around allowing it to be messy, allowing it to be raw, really, with Venus retrograde in Aries. From March 27th until April 12th, Venus will retrograde back into Pisces, which is your 11th house. So this could be an energy where you are really reviewing your friendships. You're looking at your friendships and questioning if you feel valued within them. You could be reconnecting with friends from the past that you have lost touch with. Since retrograde Venus will align with Neptune, I would be mindful at any illusion that people are trying to sell you on, particularly friends from the past. Like, a friend from the past could be like, no, things are so much better for me. I'm so much nicer. I'm not toxic anymore. And then you get ensnared in the friendship dynamic and you're like, oh, nope, that was an empty promise. Like some of you could be dealing with certain friendship dynamics where they're saying things are one way, but they're actually something else, right? It's almost like giving me that energy. If you've ever had a friend who's been kind of in an unhealthy relationship dynamic and they tell you all the ins and outs of their relationship, and then the next week they're like, no, we're fine, we're great. And it's like, well, I know that it's not because you told me that. Like, again, people will want you to buy into their delusion that everything's perfect. They want you to buy into that fantasy so that they can believe it as well. And it's uncomfortable when you're on the receiving end of it and you're like, wait, but you were sobbing and crying the week prior. Again, this could show up within present connections, past connections. It's not necessarily their romantic lives, but you could just be dealing with certain fantasies that your friends are living in, being like, that's not true. And some of you might have to kind of dispel some tough love with Venus retrograde on Saturn, keeping it real with a friend of yours. Maybe a friend of yours is, partying too much, they're escaping too much. And again, that's not your responsibility, but friends do call each other out. We care about one another, we support one another. And with Venus retrograde aligning with Saturn, you may have to be real with a friend of yours out of compassion, really out of love. Some of you could be connecting with an old friend. Again, boundaries might be important and impactful with Venus retrograde aligning with Saturn. And really with Venus retrograde in 12th house, getting to subconscious processes. What do I run away from? What are the sides of myself that I've suppressed or neglected or avoided even? The parts of myself that I found were not pretty, so I shoved them into the darkness, right? I shoved them into the back of the closet. So my loves, whether your Venus retrograde story shows up within your love life, within your bank account, within your leisure time, one thing's for sure. With us moving through Venus retrograde at the time that we also have eclipses, it definitely feels to be a time that we are getting our ducks in a row, reviewing where we've been so we can course correct where we are going, completing certain karmic cycles that have played out within friendships, within lovers, within financial situations in order to move forward. Again, I think of Venus retrograde as us cleaning up the past and our vibration around it in order to prepare for the future, which is sure to be bright. So I would love to know, what are you looking forward to about this transit? What are you not looking forward to about this transit? Have you already felt these themes come alive within your world? I would love to know. My Instagram handle is @HaleyCometAstrology. My TikTok is the same. I would so love to connect with you over there. If this was your first time stopping by to my cosmic corner of the internet, I do all sorts of all signs forecasts here on the channel. I also have a weekly horoscope series. It's called Magic Monday, where I chat you through every single week and how to make it more magical by aligning with the astrology, or at least understanding what's showing up within the collective cosmos. So make sure to subscribe and check that out. But until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.